globe. Rosa Zadira will give us an update on global business outlook. Erin Akejola will be taking us through sporting activities across the globe, while Anise Yosakwe will fill us in on what's trending around the world and highlight impactful stories and the milestones in our Good News Report. There's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now it's time for us to take a look at news stories making headlines from across the globe. But of course, we always begin here at home. As the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, has called on the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, to immediately resign and face his quote-unquote obsession with the politics of Rivers State. Bashiru was reacting to a reported tirade against him by the FCT minister following his position that all members of the party must accord any sitting governor his due respect and that governors remain the leaders of the party in their states. The APC secretary said it is shocking that this should elicit the response from the FCT minister. He described as a cheap blackmail Wike's reference to a certain 600 billion naira largesse in River State, for which he, Bashiru, and other APC leaders are allegedly scrambling. Bashiru said Wike is not a member of the APC and so lacks the locus to dabble into the affairs of the party. He asserted that his position on the affairs of River State cannot be an undue interference in the affairs of River State. However, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has warned the APC National Secretary, that's Senator Ajibola Bashiru, to stay out of River State politics, saying the state is a no-go area for political interference. Speaking during his thank you visit to Oyibo LGA, Wike cautioned that Rivers' support for President Bola Tinubu should not be taken for granted, warning that anyone who meddles in the state's affairs should be ready to face the consequences.
Let me warn those who come to Rivers State because you have heard about 600 billion. You come here, you collect, and you open your mouth, you talk anyhow. I want to say it. You know, when you are doing something for the interest of everybody, some people will come out to make sure those things don't work. I say it here, Victor, tell the brother, I want to say it here. Take this message. Tell your national secretary, leave River State alone. Leave River State alone. Go and ask those who have tried it before. Go and ask those who have tried it before. Happy Don't take our support from Mr. President for granted. You have to be careful the statement you make. You have to be careful. Today, you are enjoying in Osun. You don't know those who did the work. You open your mouth to talk about River State. Anything you see, take it. Anything you see, what? Agreement is agreement.
All right, that's the Minister of the FCT there, flanked by his son. On to other news, as President Bola Tinubu has in two separate letters written to the Senate seeking confirmation of 21 nominees for the boards of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, that's NMDPRA, and the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, that's NUPRC. In the first letter, President Tinubu nominated Senator Magnus Abe to serve as chairman of NUPRC board Abe, who represented Rivers Southeast in the Senate for 2 terms, is a former NNPC board member and current chairman of the National Agency of the Great Green Wall. Other nominees for the NUPRC board are Engineer Paul Yaro Jezi, a former Trade Union Congress chairman in Kaduna, and Sunday Babalola, a former deputy director of the Department of Petroleum Resources, which was abolished by the PIA in 2021. Both men will serve as non-executive commissioners. President Tinubu also nominated 6 executive commissioners to the board. In his second letter, Tinubu nominated Adegbite Ebioweyi Adeniji, a lawyer, as chairman of the NMDPRA board. Adeniji has over 30 years of experience in energy and natural resources issues. He was a special technical advisor to the Minister of State for Petroleum on upstream and gas until 2018. President Tinubu also nominated 6 non-executive members. Now, the president urged the Senate to approve the nominees expeditiously. The requests followed the recent appointment of chief executive officers for the 2 regulatory agencies. The Senate confirmed Orishameyiwa Eyeson as the chief executive officer of the NUPRC and Engineer Saidu Aliu Mohammed as CEO of NMDPRA. Tinubu charged all the appointees and nominees to discharge their duties and responsibilities professionally as regulators of the oil and gas sectors. Now, onto the campaign trail, as the Independent National Electoral Commission says it has resumed the nationwide continuous voter registration exercise, which marks the beginning of the second phase of the process. The resumption follows the conclusion of the first phase of the CVR, which officially ended on December 10, 2025. INEC had earlier launched online pre-registration for the exercise on August 18, 2025, before rolling out physical registration at designated centers across the country on August 25th. In a statement issued in December, the Commission disclosed that a total of 9,891,801 Nigerians initiated the online pre-registration process during the first phase of the exercise. Now to issues surrounding insecurity. No fewer than 9 soldiers were killed yesterday and several others injured when their convoy hit a landmine and came under fire from terrorists in Borno State. The attack took place on Sunday near Bindundul village, some 12 miles from Karito, an area where Daesh-affiliated Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP fighters were said to operate freely and often set up checkpoints. According to 2 security sources from the Damasak Brigade, the terrorists planted a mine that our soldiers stepped on. Unfortunately, about 9 soldiers died instantly, while 5 others were seriously injured. That's a direct quote. A member of the civilian joint task force involved in the rescue operation, Abba Kakatuja, added that an armored vehicle was destroyed when the mine detonated, followed by sporadic gunfire from militants. Well, those are the top stories today. We are looking at all things from the road to elections heating up, both politically and in terms of our election infrastructure, INEC, developments in Rivers State, insecurity, tragic news of our men who lost their lives yesterday, as well as, of course, the economy with NUPRC and NMDPRA boards.
Okay, at first, I'd like to pay tribute to our dear troops that lost their life in active service. The death of every man diminishes all of us. But these are patriots. These are those that keep putting their life on the line to fight for all of us. They could have been with their families celebrating the festivities of the new year, but out there on a mission to keep Nigeria sovereign and safe, they pay the supreme price with their lives, and their sacrifices will never be forgotten. But I also quickly want to add another story that hurts my heart, and it's based on a reporting by Daily Trust about what happened in Niger yesterday. You've not heard the end of it. The president did say, let's go after those that perpetrated that heinous act, what happened in Niger. Stories are beginning to emerge that the death toll was not even 30, it was more than 30. Some are saying 45, some are saying 60. But the shocking thing for me that hurts me the most is the fact that the kids that were just rescued from Papiri in Niger State, some of them were re-abducted in that kidnapping, because it was not only killings that happened, the terrorists also abducted people in Niger. So just imagine the trauma of a kid that had just faced the trauma of being in the bush abducted. Now that kid been re-abducted in the space of a month and a half. 2 times, insecurity struck. They went through the ordeal of negotiating their release. Now the newspaper Daily Trust claimed they've been re-abducted. This is our country for you. This is the sad reality. I don't want to go the phrase, oh, Nigerian happened, but it happens. When we say Nigeria happens, because they are in Nigeria and there's a level of insecurity. When good things also happen, we can also say Nigeria happened, and no biggies about that. But that's the sad reality of the insecurity we are fighting. And that's why it's not just President Tinubu saying, go fight them away in France, while he's in France. It's about him doing something about this insecurity. It's lasted for too long. As regards Wike, I see the reason for his reaction. Give it to President Tinubu. That man is a master strategist. Like I was saying the other day when Mr. Tonya Cole was here, I said the reason why when Minister Wike wanted to impeach Fubara, President Tinubu intervened and probably gave him a leeway was so that he will have options. And his options have come home. So now, Fubara has joined the APC. The APC top apparatchik have closed rank with him. You can see the chairman of the party saying the other day that he's our man. Then Bolaji Bashir is saying, Wike, you're not even a member of the APC. And you see, that's why politicians should be careful. When Wike was going at people in his own party, did he forget that at some point in the APC, they would tell him you're not a member of the APC because Fubara has joined the APC. And President Tinubu has played him out in the game. Guess what? Unknowingly, after he got the Supreme Court ruling that they did the local government elections again last year, he went to put most of the local government chairmen as APC members. He ensured they got in. The State House of Assembly defected to APC. The governor, APC. Wike, PDP. It's so easy to scheme him out. And that's why the likes of Ajibala Bashir can challenge him and say, you are not in the party. You don't have a right to tell us what you do in the party. Yes, Wike can say, oh, you can't tell me that. Don't put your mouth in reverse politics. Say all sorts. But President Tinubu has strategically schemed it out. That's why they call him the Jagaban. I don't agree with President Tinubu on many things, but on this, he has shown he's the political Jagaban. He has schemed him out. So Wike can go ahead with his local government home. But what Wike forgets is, yes, you will say the local government chairmen they are loyal to you, right? But they are in the APC. Most of them, I think save for 1 or 2 that PDP won. Majority of them are in the APC. So it's been schemed out. President Tinubu can choose to work with Fubara. And that's why Bashir said that he could resign. So the question is, will Wike now want to fight back and go against the grain and fight the federal might? As saying he wants to get a candidate to challenge Fubara? It might be a game up for him. This might be the beginning of the end of this fight. On this, like they say on the streets, President Tinubu 200, Wike 0.
Okay, very quickly, let me start with the boards. Now, what the law, the enabling law, setting up either the UPRC or the NMDPRA says is that there shall be a board. Now, it has taken President Bola Ahmed Tinubu almost how many years now since he assumed office in 2023 to now set up a board. Well, as they say, better late than never, because he has now finally, fulfilled that obligation, that legal obligation that there must be a board. Shortly after changing the leadership of both the NUPRC and the NMDPRA. Now, 2 things. The NUPRC, it's a fairly straightforward assignment. What do? They oversee the upstream sector, oversee the exploration activities upstream, and then, of course, licensing rounds, bid rounds, and all of that. So the board has a responsibility to make sure that there is transparency in that regard and that due processes followed and that whatever process that they have to deal with is not politicized because these are regulators, as it were. So and you have Magnus Abe, Senator Magnus Abe, as the chairman of that board of the NUPRC. Now, in a sense, you may say in terms of extraction, it looks good for government to have chosen somebody from Ogoniland, or if you like, from Rivers State. And then, of course, he also has experience. He had been on the board of the NNPC previously. So it looks like, the issues are quite familiar to him. Now, as for the NMDPRA, there's a lot of more work there because the NMDPRA that is responsible for the midstream and the downstream will be dealing with refining, we'll be dealing with storage, we'll be dealing with distribution, we'll be dealing with quality, ensuring that the quality of products is in order and reliable and for the benefit of Nigeria. So they have, even a lot more rigorous work to do. Now take the refineries. The only refinery that is working, that is so visible in Nigeria today is the Dangote refinery. You recall that when the Dangote refinery had issues with the former head of that body, Farouk Ahmed, the issue was that even the NMDPRA did not have its own laboratory. If it wants to test quality, if it wants to establish standards and set standards, it will, ordinarily outsource that to some other bodies. The first task of this new board that is led by Mr. Adeniji is simply to make sure that that body, that NMDPRA, at least sets up a laboratory that can be, relied upon. And two, that the NMDPRA does not get involved in this old practice of giving approvals for importation. The business should be how to, grow activities in the midstream and the downstream. And then as for the refineries, there is an opinion abroad that these refineries that are comatose, that are just a waste on the resources of Nigeria, should be sold, even if it is a scrap or whatever, or something should be done about them. That will be within the purview also of the NMDPRA board. And then, of course, to ensure accountability, to ensure transparency. Now, incidentally, the chairman of that board, Mr. Adeniji, he has been in oil and gas. I think he was involved in helping to fine-tune the petroleum oil sector reform, particularly in the area of gas. So he's familiar with the subject. It's not as if, it's a tyro being given, an assignment that he's not familiar with. So if you look at the other board members too, some of them have been in NNPC or they've served on the board before under President Buhari. So there's also a sense of continuity. And now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has added also new hands. But the retest will be in what they are able to do and how productive and how effective they are as regulators, not people trying to serve political interests, but ensuring integrity, transparency, and accountability. So I think the appointment of the board members is welcome, and we hope that they'll get expeditious approval from the Senate as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has requested. Now, quickly to Rivers State. Now, here's some wicked place politics for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. When he was speaking at Uyigbu local government area yesterday, in the course of what he calls visits to Rivers State, he told the people, while concluding, that he was there to support, to campaign for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But while he's playing politics for President Tinubu, it is obvious that some members of the APC, the leadership of the APC, are not happy with his kind of politics. Now, the reasons are not far to seek. Perhaps his style, perhaps his almost deliberate alienation of many constituencies that could also have been very useful to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, in less than 1 week, the chairman of the APC, Yituada Nentawe, has had to remind Nyesom Wike that he's not the leader of any party in Rivers State. That is the governor of the state, Sim Fubara, who is now known as 001, that is the leader of the APC in Rivers State, and that is not answerable to people who are outside the party. Nentawe even rubbed it in and said, as far as they are concerned, Wike is a member of the PDP. Now, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, who is the national secretary of the party, also more or less rubbed it in and said the man that they recognize in the APC is Sim Fubara. And now Bashiru went a step further and said if Wike is more concerned about politics in Rivers, he should resign his appointment at the federal level and go and face Rivers policy. So it's a kind of rejection by some of the principal members of the APC itself. So while he may be on good terms with President Tinubu, some people clearly oppose him, even within the APC that he says is helping. And this will have implications for, politics in Rivers State particularly. But Wike says he's the one in charge of Rivers, that Rivers is a no-go area, that Bashiru will burn his hands, that in fact he should go and ask from people who tried to intervene in Rivers before and what happened to them, more or less making himself, in a grandiloquent manner, the emperor of Rivers State, to a position to which nobody has either appointed him or anointed him. But, politicians also learn their lessons. It may well happen that the same President Tinubu that he says he will report Bashiru to and the Minister of Blue Economy may have their own ideas in terms of the utility value of Wike himself, either as a politician or as somebody campaigning for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I've made this point before, so I repeat it again. Now, INEC, the voter registration, it's called a continuous voter registration exercise. They've completed the first phase, and were able to register physically over 2 million people, another over 1 million on online, online registration. And now what they want to do is the second phase. Now the second phase means, okay, more voters who have not been captured would have to get onto the register. The only two areas that have been suspended, Anambra and the Federal Capital Territory, where there are ongoing political activities, electoral activities at the moment. So later, Anambra and FCT will also be captured. The whole idea is to ensure that anybody who is of voting age, who is eligible to vote, is not excluded. Since 2023, when we had the last general elections, there have been more people who have attained the age of 18, which is the voting age in Nigeria. Now, all those persons, the purpose of the law is to make sure that they are also included and they are also allowed to exercise their right of franchise. And so it's just a routine exercise. But what is more important is that these voters that have been registered, that have been put into the pool, the long-term objective is to make sure that the election or the elections that INEC will conduct in 2027 will be such elections that will allow the people the right to choose freely and fairly, and that the enabling environment is provided to make sure that this is a reality when we go to the polls.
Absolutely. I think that's the most apt way to put our outlook on this ongoing exercise of voter registration that has now gone into its second phase. INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Victoria Etamesi, was on Arise yesterday. You spoke about the somewhat low numbers so far and expressed that during the second phase, what they're going to do is they're going to create a mobile registration system because many people are saying that logistically they're struggling to come to the INEC headquarters in each local government area. So INEC will be going from ward to ward with a mobile registration system to try and capture as many people as possible. This is also in light of a report done by Yaga Africa, which is a national voter intention survey that says that 77% of voters actually have the intention of voting. However, only 45 have confidence in INEC. So there's more work work that needs to be done in the confidence building of INEC and the electoral process between now and the election. And a lot of focus needs to be placed on that. But let's look at some of the bigger issues of the day. Let's go to politics in Rivers State that I think are a microcosm of what we are seeing on a national level and what was the inevitable outcome of Machiavellian politics at play. This is what happens when we choose Machiavellian politics over ideology. We saw this wave of governors defecting from PDP to the APC. We now hear that NNPP will also defect and join the APC. And one key thing that many people fail to acknowledge is that this will create resentment within the APC. I remember in November last year at the APC stakeholders meeting for Lagos, a former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, has said, what is the state of APC's reward system, the internal reward system? Meaning, if you are a member of APC, a stalwart of APC, you have been a stakeholder and you have been waiting for your turn, you have been part of the structures. What happens when that whole system is upended because somebody has come in from outside the party and you are now told that that person owns the structure? Because the debate continues. As much as the APC has reasserted that the leader of the state, the governor, the incumbent, becomes the leader of the state, what happens to those who have earned their stripes in the state? The case of Rivers State is a little bit different because it's almost a case of triple wahala, not even double wahala, because you have Nyesom Wike and those loyal to him, whether they be in PDP or APC. You now have Governor Siminalayi Fubara, who is now an APC governor, and the structures that he has, which are also factionalized. Let's not forget that there are still long-time loyalists of the APC who have been playing opposition politics in that party, who have now also been alienated. So you have all these three groups who are wrangling for control. And what is the big issue? The big issue here is that we're counting down to March, where the party convention will happen. Who will control the delegates? Because we know that the delegates at the primaries are hotcakes. It's a big issue. And he who has control over the delegates is he who really is the 001 of the state, if we are to put it in that context. So we are now going to see a heating up of these wranglings. As much as Rivers State, because of the personalities involved, is a lot more explosive, we can see it brewing in other states. Can we really say that Delta State has been able to reconcile and harmonize? Remember, there was the rift between Oborobori and Omoagege, as much as they then accepted that governor becomes the leader of the party. Is it resolved? Is there harmony? You go to Enugu State. Is there harmony? Are they happy that someone was brought in after all the work they've been doing as an opposition party in that state? Look at Plateau State, where as much as Senator Lalong says that he hands over to Caleb Mufwang to be the leader of the party, are the structures of the APC genuinely happy that they now have to submit themselves to people who have not earned those so-called structures, if I may put it in that sense? So now the question is power and control of the party earned, or is it transferred? And this is a very important detail, because it means that when the primaries happen, when the convention happens, we might find that there are several individuals who will be disgruntled, who will be shortchanged, and who will walk away with resentment. And that's where the politics will really begin. What will happen to those who feel entitled, who feel that they should be beneficiaries of the APC reward system over a long period of time, who are now feeling that they're being shortchanged by all these people who are coming from left, right, and center simply because of incumbency? It negates the effort and investment that they've made into the party. So as much as this is playing out in Rivers State, what I think we're seeing from the leadership of the APC is we're finally seeing an explosion of that frustration that has been brewing, because their investment has been made in the party. They've sowed their seeds in various places, and those seeds may not come to pass because people have been brought from outside to play the politics of the 2027 election. I close with the issues of insecurity around the state, which Rufai made a very, very valid point. In Niger State, if you look at what happened in Niger State, the attack was right next to Papiri village. Now, we thought that after such a heinous attack happened and after the president has issued marching orders, that there would be security within that area. However, they say that that attack went on for 2 hours. and there was no resistance whatsoever. There was no intervention. In Borno State, we're now seeing that terrorists are now setting traps for our troops. Now, what is the common denominator here? The common denominator here is that we're seeing the movement of terrorists as they're escaping the places that they feel are hotspots, the places that they feel that they're under attack. They're now moving themselves to new territories. In Borno State, they're laying landmines along their path. We've reached a new level of this war, and I do hope that the commander-in-chief will be on ground, will put his own boots on ground very soon, because things are getting unnecessarily heated up. It's now time for a short break on the morning show, and when we return, we'll have Adefemi Akinsonya join us for World Brief and to review top stories in today's newspapers. Do stay with us.
Monday morning talking about rural and maintenance.
Starting and growing a business can be tough,
Debits?
especially
Oh,
with insufficient funds.
This business is becoming too expensive. My children need to start feeding me.
More, these figures are not small.
At Access Bank, we love SMEs, from business loans to flexible cost savings account. We've got the solutions to help your business thrive. With our Diamond Business Advantage account, you can easily access financial support, business tools for growth, business loans, and opportunities to meet and interact with other business owners. Dream big and elevate your business to the next level. To learn more, visit www.accessbankplc.com/business/SME-banking or walk into any of our branches to get started.
My baba dey always say, for market, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go want scam you, but baba say no be by gra. You must cool down, dey sharp, because with OPay payment, your money go enter sharp, no story. But inside market, anything fit happen. One day, we no see phone again. My baba remember OPay USSD lock, dial *955*131#. Baba press am, lock account. From market woman to driver, from small boy to big man. Now OPay, they protect people like us. My papa fit sell, press phone, collect POS, and still they teach me price. And when they don't tire, go just tap OPay night guard. We no fear for this our hustle life. Now OPay be the people payment shield.
Good morning. Today's weather will be sunny with a high of 31 degrees.
Alexa, music please.
Playing workout music.
Striving for mastery? You need speed, precision, and clarity of purpose. They all add up. Talent is not enough. You've got to prove that you're able to take advantage of unlimited opportunities when they come. And to do that, you need plenty of data. Scratch that. You need unlimited data. And there's no better provider of unlimited data
Access granted.
than your all-powerful Glow router.
Whether home or office, enjoy unlimited data on a Glow router. Dial *312#.
You know, I've got unlimited eyes.
Glow Unlimited.
I'm still watching.
Solar energy has improved the lives of Nigerians in the sense that we can have a cleaner environment and thereby preserving the earth for future generations. Our mission is to ensure we develop and deliver locally acceptable, contemporary, and innovative solutions in partnership with global organizations to ensure that we become the first and the trusted choice for Nigerians. So the option of having a solar solution at just 30% equity already ensures that you have money back in your pocket, because then you can then pay on a monthly basis over a period of time, which if you compare with the fact that you're also paying grid is actually more affordable over a period of time. Then you can have your access to power under your control at every point in time for up to 10 years.
Be Unstoppable Africa at the 9th All-African Music Awards, AFRIMA, in partnership with the African Union Commission and the Lagos State Government. The biggest music stage, the stars are celebrated and go home with 23.9-carat gold-plated AFRIMA trophy to be hosted by Vals. Live broadcast of Red Carpet starts at 3:30 p.m. AFRIMA Awards live broadcast starts at 7 p.m. on Sunday, January 11, 2026 at the Eco Convention Center, Eco Hotel and Suites, Lagos, Nigeria. For tickets, invitations, seat reservations, visit afrima.org. 9th AFRIMA Awards. Be unstoppable.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now for What Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning.
Good morning. That's me. Who I got to bond with in the hair salon yesterday.
Hey, yes, exactly. Bimbai and I bumped each other at the hair salon, and I love your hair, Bimbai. It is gorgeous. Well. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Tactically drew attention to your hairdo.
Well, no.
She was sitting beside two men. Did they compliment your hair this morning, Bimbai? Did they say anything? Hey,
Bimbai.
No problem.
Men never noticed.
Bimbai,
yes.
how much is your hair?
This one.
But I can't notice because I'm not your Lowori. There's an Lowori there.
Okay.
Me too, I can't know because there's an Lowori. It's your Lowori that notices your hair.
Okay, but where is he? Exactly. All right, good morning to you viewers. Let me tell you what is happening around the world. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores have pleaded not guilty to drug trafficking charges in a New York court where he declared he is still president. That's amidst a dramatic first appearance. Now, transported to the courthouse in handcuffs, surrounded by armed officers, Maduro claimed he was a prisoner of war. His lawyers are expected to contest the legality of his arrest, arguing that he is immune from prosecution as a sovereign head of state. Now, inside the court, Maduro was asked to confirm his identity. In response, this is what he said. I am, Sir Nicolas Maduro, of the Republic of Venezuela, and I am here kidnapped since January 3rd. I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. Those were his words. He was interrupted by the judge who told him that, listen, in terms of story, we'll get into that. So as I said, he said, I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. Now, moving on, we do know that Maduro is represented by the same lawyer who represented Julian Assange. Now, he also reportedly wrote pages upon pages of notes while he was in court. And when he was asked to submit his plea, he said he was innocent. Now, his wife, Celia Flores, also pleaded not guilty and referred to herself as First Lady. She had visible bandages. And in the most dramatic moment of the hearing, a man in the gallery called Maduro an illegitimate president, telling him that he will pay on behalf of Venezuela. In response, Maduro said, "In the name of God, I will be free." Dramatic scenes in the courtroom. Now, protesters did gather outside the court with some brandishing placards reading "USA hands off Venezuela" and others saying "Thank you, President Trump." Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez, she was sworn in as Venezuela's interim president. She praised Maduro and his wife as heroes. So we're keeping our eyes and ears across what's happening in Venezuela. Nevertheless, the United Kingdom government is facing criticism for its muted response to the US arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, with opposition parties accusing it of failing to uphold international law. Now, the UN Security Council did gather on Monday to discuss the situation. It was an emergency meeting with the United Kingdom suggesting that it will abstain if a resolution criticizing the United States intervention is voted on. Meanwhile, Downing Street has indicated that Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper will make a statement to MPs on the situation, but critics have argued that the government's response so far has been insufficient. Now, even a Labour MP, his name is Steve Witherden, He said the government's response has been insufficient. The post-war order is in tatters. Our foreign policy assumptions are outdated and we need to realign. The Liberal Democrats, they have called for a release of internal government advice on the legality of the US operation, with spokesperson Callum Miller saying that Trump's intervention in Venezuela are surely in violation of international law, yet our tight-lipped Prime Minister is refusing to call that out. Let's move on to the Middle East. Saudi Arabia has publicly accused the United Arab Emirates of undermining its national security, exposing a deep rift between the two Gulf Arab states. The unusually blunt charge reflects growing Saudi unease with the UAE's increasingly independent foreign policy, particularly in Yemen, Sudan, and in the Horn of Africa. Now, Riyadh is concerned that the instability or state collapse in these regions could have grave consequences for its own national security. That's as the dispute centers on the UAE's role in Yemen, where it has supported separatist groups, and also in Sudan, where it has significant economic interests. Saudi officials worry that the UAE's actions could embolden extremist groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which have a presence in that region. Meanwhile, the UAE has denied allegations of undermining Saudi national security, framing its foreign policy as part of a broader commitment to responsible leadership and enduring progress. However, the dispute has raised concerns about the potential consequences for global trade, as both countries are major oil exporters. And our last story on today's edition of the World Brief looks at the African continent. We're coming home. Now, journalists covering Uganda's 2026 election campaign have been facing increasing violence and intimidation from security forces and others, raising alarm about press freedom and democratic transparency. Now, reporters covering campaign events have been beaten, detained, harassed by security forces, despite clearly identifying themselves as media. Press freedom groups warn the attacks come as President Yoweri Museveni seeks to extend his decades-long rule, raising concerns about transparency and the integrity of the vote. Now, Uganda does head to the polls next week. Next week's also on the 15th of January, nevertheless. Let's take a look at our newspaper headlines now. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. This Day has a range of stories. This unfortunate story, the 9 soldiers dying, 5 seriously injured in this mine blast in an ambush in Borno, obviously terrible. Another story on This Day, it does report that there's been a heated clash between FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and APC National Chairman Ajibola Basiru over Rivers State politics and Governor Siminalayi Fubara's second-term prospects. Now, Wike warned that he warned Basiru essentially to stay out of Rivers affairs, while Basiru accused Wike of overreach and demanded his resignation from the Federal Executive Council. This deepens tensions within the ruling parties. Let's see what happens there. Also on the front page, This Day does report that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has nominated former Senator Magnus Abe and Adegbite Ebiowe Adeniji as chairman of the boards of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, respectively. They are submitted, their names have been submitted alongside 19 other nominees, and the president has forwarded their names to the Senate for confirmation, urging swift approval to strengthen regulation in the oil and gas sector. It is Tuesday, and Tuesday means that we also take a look at The Advocate. The Advocate is Onikepo Braithwaite's column in our legal insert, and this week she argues that the trust in government, it must be earned essentially through transparency, respect for the rule of law, and accountability, not just rhetoric. Now, her column this week condemns renewed terrorist attacks in Plateau State, in Niger, and also criticizes the government's reactive approach to security and warns that alleged alterations to National Assembly passed tax bills undermine democracy. Now, let's take a look at the Daily Sun this morning. The Daily Sun does report that the Federal Ministry of Education will enforce stiffer measures against exam malpractice. It's just a story on the bottom here. And essentially, these new measures, they're going to be doing this for the 2026 SSCE. So these new measures include randomized question sequencing, unique learner IDs, stricter supervision, a prohibition of last-minute school transfers for SS3 students, and new continuous assessment submission timelines to ensure transparency and accountability. Let's take a look at The Punch. The Punch does report again, that the African Union has extended the mandate of the multinational joint task force against Boko Haram in the Lake Chad Basin for another year. This will now start from February 2026 to January 2027. Now, the MNJTF comprises of Nigeria, Republic of Benin, Cameroon, Chad. They will all continue operations such as Lake Sanity 3, while the African Union called for increased funding, cross-border intelligence sharing too. In addition to that, the Punch also reports that Anthony Joshua may quit boxing. Now, his uncle, Adedamola Joshua, did reveal this update, saying that the former world heavyweight champion is seriously considering retirement after he was involved in a fatal car crash last month, which of course killed his two close friends, Sina Gami and Abdul Latif Ayodele. Very sad news there. And the Daily Independent, let's take a look at that this morning. Now, the Daily Independent does report that Nigeria's agriculture sector in 2026 could grow significantly if policy, consistency, investment, technology, adoption, climate resilience, and all that other good stuff is conducive and prioritized. Let's take a look at the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph does report, again, some politics now. So we've got Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde. He has reshuffled his cabinet. He's sacked SSG Adeyemo and appointed Professor Babatunde as her replacement, with other key appointments in budget, energy, and public works. Now, still on the front page, at the downside, we've got the New Telegraph reporting that US President Donald Trump claims about 33% of Nigerian immigrant households rely on public benefits. Now, his administration has also expanded travel bans and exposed stricter visa regulations on Nigerians and other countries. This is part of a broader immigration measure that we're seeing with the new Trump administration. Let's take a look at our UK papers this morning. So we've got the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail does report, it does lead rather on President Trump's possible territorial ambitions for Greenland and the implications for NATO. Meanwhile, we do have the I newspaper. And the new paper this morning says that older drivers in the United Kingdom will be banned from the roads if they fail mandatory eyesight tests. So this is under new proposals. Drivers over 70 would face driving bans if they fail to pass driving tests. So these are our newspaper headlines and our world brief. Love to hear your thoughts.
So real quickly, I just want to knock this out. I don't think whoever the uncle Ademola Joshua is should be speaking for the Joshua family, because in the first place, he didn't even see Joshua when he was in the hospital. So he has no right to be making big pronouncements like Joshua might not be able to box again, please. And I think people should not really even believe that. I think, you know those kind of uncles now.
Too soon.
But you know those kind of uncles. We all have them in our family.
Yeah, you got the name now enough, and then kind of automatically makes you a spokesman.
Yeah,
we
all have uncles like that. But knock that up. As regards Nicolas Maduro, yes, he has a right to say he was seized. See, you might have qualms against Maduro. There's been allegations. At first, it was fentanyl, but now they're charging him for cocaine. So you can see how the allegations shift and all of that. But the way America did it was wrong. And he has a right to say I was captured.
Yes, he said he was kidnapped.
And they are taking him to a court that is being headed by Hellstein, a Jewish person. You can see the relationship with the Jewish relationship with Iran, and somebody that had first persecuted a co-defendant on Maduro case in 2011, a 92-year-old judge for that matter. And also he has a right to rebuff, and I'm happy he has got a good attorney in the person that defended Julian Assange, because what America did impacted on the sovereignty of Venezuela. And America wants to now do deals with anybody. Now they're doing deal with Chavista, the incumbent vice president of Venezuela, to be able to stabilize the government. Will that work? I don't think so. The quick wins they want with oil is a long-term development, because when you see where the oil is in Venezuela, it's in the eastern part of Venezuela, and it's very, very hard to extract because it's dense, forested region. And you need a lot of investment. Some people are saying over $100 billion. So this, your idea of getting geopolitical edge by saying, okay, let's shush China out of Venezuela and not doing it the right way, is entirely wrong. And that's why a lot of people are talking about Greenland already. Because if you can do this to Venezuela, obviously you can do it to Greenland, it's behind Greenland. And the silence from Europe is so loud. And that's why we keep on talking about, when will Europe stand tall to Trump?
This is it.
Yes, sir. It seems it's a game of personal interests now. So, many are choosing to remain silent in the face of this huge issue, this huge global injustice, because they don't want to get dragged in, because it seems anybody can get dragged in. But in all of this, yesterday, while the court appearance was happening in Venezuela, we saw the inauguration of the now acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, who was former vice president and who is still a question mark, because many people are asking, where does she really lie? Is she going to play ball with Donald Trump, or is she loyal to her principal, who is now indisposed? However, what we did see in the scenes during her inauguration was we saw her overwhelming support from Nicolas Maduro's son, Nicolas Maduro Guerra. And also in her inauguration, she pledged her allegiance to Bolivar. Now, this is an interesting development for me, because when things like this happen, I'm always interested in the law of unintended consequences. What has happened in Venezuela? What has happened in Venezuela is that the militant groups known as the Colectivos have now started rising up because there's a power vacuum. So what are they doing? They're taking controls of neighborhoods. They're taking controls of also the oil regions. And the worry is that they're going to start sabotaging pipelines in a very similar way that we've seen happen in this part of the world regularly. But they're saying that this is now a fight against imperialism, that this is a fight against colonialism, and that if America thinks they're coming to take oil, they will sabotage those efforts. What has happened? We've seen the oil price has gone up already this morning. And now, still on the issue of oil, why is Venezuelan oil so important? I know many people have spoken about the sheer resource that's available, over 300, is it 300 million, 300 billion barrels? 303 billion. However, a lot of people are not talking about the type of oil they have, which is heavy oil. Now, why is heavy oil important? Heavy oil is important because if you look at the refineries in America that are now becoming moribund because heavy oil is in short supply globally, Venezuela is a producer of heavy oil. If you look at the refineries in Texas, the one in LA, they need that heavy oil, and Venezuela is the only place they can get it. Places like Nigeria, we have the light oil, the Bonny Light, and so forth. So there's all those dynamics playing. I hope there's no insurgency brewing.
Okay, let me just make a few comments. The first thing, Maduro yesterday, one thing I noted was that he said, one, that he's innocent. The wife, in fact, said, okay, they were completely not guilty. He made a point that he was captured, and he said he's a prisoner of war.
Yes.
You'll recall that in 1989, during the trial of Manuel Noriega, Noriega's lawyers insisted that he was a prisoner of war. And under the Geneva Conventions, there are specific ways in which you can treat a prisoner of war.
Yes.
And that was why Noriega was put in something like a house arrest for about 20 years, and he was allowed access to certain basic privileges that a prisoner of war would be entitled to.
He also surrendered, so perhaps that...
Yes, so in this particular case, it's instructive that Maduro is saying right from the beginning that he's not just innocent, he's a prisoner of war. The third thing about Delcy Rodriguez, she has already told President Trump that she will do whatever America wants. However, President Trump's response is that she has no option anyway, in the matter. But it's not likely that we'll make a Chavismo, a person who is associated with Chavez ideology, the president of Venezuela. They will probably be looking in the direction of Maria Machado, who is the opposition leader and the Nobel laureate. But the trial is likely to take a very long time. It's not as if it is automatic. However, China has spoken up in support of Venezuela, and it says its economic interest in Venezuela runs into about $4.8 billion in the last 2 decades or thereabouts, and that is interested in protecting that, and that America should release the couple who have been arrested. But very quickly, let me talk about Saudi Arabia versus UAE.
Sure.
They used to be friends, allies. In fact, in 2015, they came together to fight the threat of the Houthi rebels that were backed by Iran in Yemen. But by 2014, the Houthi rebels, 2014, 2016, the Houthi rebels had already seized Yemen to become the major power in that area. And so you had a lot of factions, militias coming together. The northern part is controlled by the militia group, whatever it remains of the official government of Yemen, backed by Saudi Arabia. It now turned out the parting of ways with UAE is that the UAE is now supporting the Southern Transitional Council that is in control of the southern part, which is thinking of returning Yemen to the situation in 1990, when in that southern part, there was some kind of independent republic in that area. Now, this has implications for the security of Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia has issues with Yemen, also Sudan.
Yes.
And the whole issue is economic. Access to the Red Sea and the two major straits, the Strait of Hormuz and the Strait of Barnabas, which is used to transport crude oil.
Yes.
So there is that strategic interest involved. However, what Abu Dhabi, UAE is saying is that, look, they are just fighting ISI and other insurgents around the place, which is not true. And that was why the supply that they gave to the people in the southern part had to be attacked by Saudi Arabia. But beyond all of that, Saudi Arabia sees itself as the golden boy, the golden country in the Middle East, and that other countries should follow what he does. So UAE has been trying to assert itself. However, both of them will be mediated by the US to prevent escalation, since both of them are friends of the United States. Anyway, not enough time.
Never enough time. Never enough time. Thank you so much, Adefemi,
Always a pleasure.
for that insightful take of stories around the world. We're going to take a short break now, and when we return, we'll have Ruta Sodiri to give us updates on global business activities. Do stay with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with the woman that makes all the things happen in Fidelity Bank, the MD of Fidelity Bank.
FNITCC was conceptualized in 2022, and the whole idea was to create a platform where our exporters, lead with the global community, are able to showcase their products. What we do in the banking industry is to always try to meet the needs of our customers, and we could see that the exporters were struggling with, they didn't have a global stage on which to showcase their goods. We did so much initially in terms of capacity building. After that, the products were made, were put in proper quality, packaging and all of that. So the next step naturally is to take it to the global stage, especially if you focus on making world-class products.
Like they say, build it and they will come.
Yes, they will. Don't worry about it. Build it and they will come.
All right, ma'am.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Good morning. Today's weather will be sunny with a high of 31 degrees.
Alexa, music, please.
Playing workout music.
Striving for mastery? You need speed, precision, and clarity of purpose. They all add up. Talent is not enough. You've got to prove that you're able to take advantage of unlimited opportunities when they come. And to do that, you need plenty of data. Scratch that. You need unlimited data. And there's no better provider of unlimited data
Access granted.
than your all-powerful Glow router.
Whether home or office, enjoy unlimited data on a Glow router. Dial *312#.
You know, I've got unlimited eyes.
Glow Unlimited.
I'm still watching.
In most parts of the world, girl child are not recognized in a family. I hope all this problem holding down a girl child do not hold me down.
The idea behind the project is to identify schools that we think the parents are not economically empowered to sponsor their children to schools.
In demonstration of our commitment to reducing that number, we've come here today to provide some of the essentials that we believe would help the children in school. We worked with different schools in 5 states across the country, and we reached out to 15,000 children.
I want to be a good scientist, and Polaris Bank is helping me realize this dream. I'm perfectly excited.
Citizens who have never registered before or turned 18 after the last registration exercise. From Monday, 5th of January 2026, intending registrants can visit the INEC voter registration portal on www.cvr.inecnigeria.org to pre-register online, book an appointment, and complete the process by walking into any INEC office nearest to them to capture their fingerprints and photographs. Please be informed that all those who pre-registered online during the first phase of the CVR can still complete their registration during the second phase. INEC state and local government area offices nationwide will also be open for persons who wish to register physically. Previously registered voters who wish to transfer their registration, apply for replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, or correct their personal information in the register of voters can do so within this period. This message is brought to you by the Independent National Electoral Commission. INEC, making your vote count, consolidating our democracy.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for global business updates, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning,
Rotus.
Rufai. You guys want to make some money today? The market's just taking off. It's risk on everywhere. Look, silver is at $78. Gold is up. Copper has broken through 13,000. Oil is down though. But look at Asia. So we've mixed this up a little bit. MSCI Asia Pacific, broader index up by 1.6%. This is the CSI 300, another index. We usually give you the Shanghai Composite Index in mainland China. That's also up. Hang Seng up as well, driven by technology stocks. In Japan, the Topix is up. Nikkei 225 up, and banking stocks in particular are rising. Why? Because Kazuo Ueda has been hinting that there's going to be more rate hikes. And if you are a bank and interest rates keep rising, that is good for your net interest margin. The difference between the interest that you earn on loans minus the interest that you pay out on deposits. The KOSPI, continuing its record run. Samsung and SK Hynix are the two, Samsung in particular has a large weighting. Samsung is up 15% in just 3 days. It is absolutely wild. And then we've got the TAIEX, which is also up. Apologies to our director who has an affinity for India. We didn't put the India market off this morning, but India down. Shout out to our director, one of my favorite people. Then also in the United States, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting, he's a big fan. He supports their services exports and also their content. In fact, there was a big investment in Indian Bollywood. I'll bring that news up tomorrow. I saw it yesterday. India is making money. Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting a record. That was up yesterday. Your S&P, look at this. There was one point where 6,100 was a record sometime last year. Look at, we are nearing 7,000, and there are some analysts that are saying 7,007, 7,008 is where it could hit on the S&P 500. Your tech-heavy NASDAQ also up as well. Venezuela. Energy stocks. Chevron, the one and only U.S. company that is operating in Venezuela through a permit that they got from the Biden administration, I believe, jumping by 5.2%. These three stocks basically represent the energy ecosystem in the United States. This is Valero. Valero has a special place in my heart. When I was in the United States as a student, I bought my first credit card for fuel credit card from Valero. You basically just buy stuff and you earn points every time you buy fuel. Valero is in the downstream sector. They've got fuel stations in Texas and other parts of the United States, and they refine. So they represent refineries, because most of the oil stocks are forward-looking that will theoretically come from Venezuela, if things work out, will be taken to U.S. refineries. And the United States has hundreds of refineries in Texas, Oklahoma, California, and the likes. Then you've got Halliburton. Shout out to Dick Cheney. May he rest in peace. Halliburton, of course, offers drilling services, surveys. They service energy companies. So across the board, from upstream, midstream, downstream, anyone associated with energy, you saw stocks rising yesterday. I mean, Valero was up 9.25%, Halliburton up almost 8% yesterday. Chris Wright, who's the energy secretary, is apparently, according to Bloomberg, is going to be speaking with oil executives this week. The United States is moving fast. And speaking of moving fast, I don't know if everybody knows, according to military officials, the time between when those F-35 jets and helicopters hit the shores of Venezuela to when they extracted Maduro and his wife was 3 minutes. I mean, this is just, I'm just thinking about the speed with which they've taken him out. Now they're talking to oil and gas companies. They will need to convince the likes of ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips that have court cases that they've won, judgments they've gotten against the Venezuelan government. And if you are an energy company, like, why would I want to go in there? What if the next government comes and rips up whatever agreements we come up with? So there's going to be a lot of discussions with Chris Wright, who of course is the energy secretary. Meanwhile, in the tech space, the Consumer Electronics Show begins today, but activities already begun yesterday. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, they've been partnering with so many people. He had his keynote speech. I watched the entire thing, over an hour plus. They've partnered with, they have this new chip called Almapeo, I think, if I'm correcting it correctly. It's supposed to be the most advanced chip that they're releasing for autonomous driving. The Mercedes 2026 Mercedes CLA is going to be the first car completely autonomous driving. That's what they also had an agreement they signed with Audi, and also I think even with Siemens. I mean, they were just announcing a number of partnerships that they have. So that's on the autonomous driving front. Jensen Huang really feels, along with Elon Musk and others, that autonomous driving is the future. This is looks like a piece of art. It's actually a TV. Amazon, I think they call it their Ember Lights. They've released a TV that's supposed to look like a piece of art. Samsung already started this a while back. It retails for $900, and there's some others. We're going to be getting a lot of tech updates from the Consumer Electronics Show over in Viva Las Vegas. Moving on from there, Nigerian stocks. I mean, we are now at 101 trillion naira market cap. The market up by 1.7%. All indexes were up. Banking, insurance, industrials, oil and gas, consumer goods, 2.3% up. We finished the year up 51% in 2025. And the momentum you're seeing in Asia, the momentum in the US, the momentum, I think Europe is supposed to have just, Europe opened 9 minutes ago. Futures were pointing up in Europe as well. For now, the market's up. And I have to do this, forgive me. With all the talk of oil and gas. We had a LNG clash yesterday at AFCON, and forgive me, AB and Aaron. Total Energies is the host, the sponsor of AFCON. They have a $20 billion project in Mozambique. A $20 billion LNG which was delayed by insecurity. Nigeria has the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Company. LNG, of course, they've got with companies like Total that partner with the government in order to export liquefied natural gas. A thrashing of Mozambique, the LNG clash yesterday, 4-0. First team to score 4 goals and first for 4 minutes for the game. Excellent stuff. That's our update for today.
Today, I want to talk about the power of media. So something happened yesterday. Comcast had a spin-off, Vazant Media. Mm-hmm. So they've taken MS Now, CNBC, I think Fernago and a couple of other companies to have a spin-off, and they had their first day on the market yesterday. Traded for about $40. It was $45 when it started, slumped to about $40. Market cap about 6.8 billion. Yeah. Comcast, the other Comcast, that has Infinity and the rest, market cap still over 102 billion. The big takeaway is, Rotus, is when will that day a Nigerian media company
list on the exchange?
Will list on the exchange with all those assets and have a valuation of about 6.8 billion. Probably the only media company.
DAR, right?
It's only DAR that has that,
Yeah.
When will media grow to that extent that you get on the market, you list, and your shares are going into the trillions?
We'll grow in time.
We'll grow. We're waiting for that day.
We'll take time. Maybe we'll list first. Maybe Arise News will list first. Who knows?
You think?
Maybe. Who knows?
You think?
We'll see. We'll have to see.
I mean, I'm still very interested in developments around oil in Venezuela. And of course, you know, Donald Trump had made that proclamation on Air Force One that he had consulted the oil companies before Maduro's capture and after his capture as well. And Chevron and a number of other oil companies have actually come out. It was Chevron and anyway, I have the list.
Yeah.
Have come out to say that they were not consulted in any way. They were not a part of that. You know, they have no prior knowledge. But I mean, I don't expect any different from them.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then this Alpha Mayo that NVIDIA launched yesterday, which I think is just incredible, scary, because what they're saying is they're taking it a notch up from Tesla because this car can reason. This self-driving technology can reason. It can predict. And you know, one of the biggest complaints with the Teslas is that, well, it takes you through the long route because it only chooses the safest possible route. But this will be able to take you through the shortest route because apparently it can think, and that is just very scary, isn't it?
That's where we're going.
Okay, about this fresh volatility as a result of American intervention in Venezuela. Well, it's very clear because of the uncertainty in the oil market. Brent crude has gone down to about $59.65. The Western Intermediate, as of this morning, is about $56, going down about 1.8%. So because, you know, the market is very cautious about, you know, crude futures. Now, but there are two sides to it. There is a short-term risk. In terms of the short-term risk, now I was saying yesterday that America has already sealed off the whole of that Venezuelan corridor. No ships can come in, none can go out. So as a result, export activities will cease. Venezuela accounts for 17% of the crude oil reserves in the world. Now, 1% is what is taken out in terms of export, about 550,000 barrels per day out of a production of about 950,000 barrels per day. Out of all of that output, China buys 2% of its crude from Venezuela. And that's why the Chinese are saying they have strategic investments in Venezuela and they do not want, you know, any of these disruptions. Yesterday, the foreign ministry spokesman of China spoke. Now, short-term risks in terms of the closure. Now, long-term risk, particularly for OPEC, is that if and when Trump is able to, you know, do whatever he wants to do with Chevron and other, you know, companies, U.S. companies that will go in there and seize the oil for some time and use it to develop America, as it were, there may be a glut in the market. And then the fear is that if there's a glut in terms of supply, then, of course, the prices will go further down. And that is why countries that are dependent on oil revenue will have to start planning ahead. It may take a while, but we may get to that point. That's why it's called the long-term, you know, risk. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Professor Udenta Udenta, a political commentator and human rights activist. He's a former national secretary of the Defunct Alliance for Democracy. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch. For easy, fast, and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now in your hands. People, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
My name is Austin Azoko Kocha, but you all call me JJ. That's because I was so unstoppable, they named me twice. During my days as a professional footballer, I played as an attacking midfielder. No one could stop me, not even malaria.
when mosquito bites. Now you too can be unstoppable if you use Lonart against malaria.
Lonart, a combination of Artemether and lumefantrine. Lonart, be unstoppable.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. From a robust, plural, multi-party system, the current political space is stifled and gradually narrowed to a one-party system, as the All Progressives Congress controls the majority of the states. The once dominant People's Democratic Party, the Labour Party, the Social Democratic Party have all been infiltrated and have become shadows of their once vibrant entities. Joining us to examine Nigeria's political landscape and the questions surrounding what APC's dominance could mean for our democratic structure is Professor Udenta Udenta, the former National Secretary of the defunct Alliance for Democracy, AD. Good morning, Professor Udenta, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Thank you, the Gang of Three, for having me so early in the year. Dr. Bati, Vimbai, and Rufai.
Good morning, sir.
It's my pleasure to humbly present myself before you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, quickly, Professor Udenta, do you really agree that Nigeria is drifting towards a one-party state? After all, we still have other political parties that are actively engaged in the process leading to 2027. And I ask that question because the view is that, well, some governors defecting, senators defecting, does not mean that, the state has already been, the space has already been fully constricted for free and open political expression. And if we say, yes, we're drifting towards one-party state, APC dominating this space, what does that what are the implications for our democratic culture and process?
Let me frame the conversation, the question you put out to me this way. We have been through this circuit before in the past. I read somewhere some days ago that 2015, that former President Jonathan had 28 governors. The bulk of National Assembly and State Assembly and infrastructure across the country to have delivered him comfortably for re-election in that year's election. He lost and conceded to Mohamed Buhari, now late. In this studio and several other studios, not just on the Arise platform, I've talked about the flatulence of the APC is overgorging and ultimately is disgorging, because flatulence will lead to obesity. It's already happening in Rivers State. It could be a signpost for systemic disorder within the parties in administrative infrastructure somewhere down the line. But beyond that, a multinational, heterogeneous, diverse country will of course resist the emblem of a multi-party, single-party democracy, one-party state. Any attempt by the APC to achieve what it set out to accomplish in the past 2.5 years will fail. Politicians, you must understand, are ghosts. They meander around. But 1 or 2 ago, ADC wasn't really something you can talk about as a party, to reckon with. But with the movement in the Southeast and across the country, or the obedience and P2B, it has reinforced that particular platform. PDP remains a very viable, vibrant opposition, but now with deep legal challenges. If it gets out of the legal challenges in good enough time before the season sets upon us sometime maybe mid this year or second quarter this year, thereabout, the party will still have a lot to say going forward. Labour Party and SDP may have deeper institutional disabilities because of the hijack. Politics already occurred there, and ADA didn't get registered. My own take is that at the end of the day, Nigerian politics has a way of balancing itself and rebalancing itself, its imperatives, its direction or trajectory, and ultimately the contestation for power. By the time we finish all the primaries election, I can bet you the APC will be leaner, slimmer, and other parties are going to pick up the pieces. By the time we go to the election, there'll be a balance of forces between 2 or 3 parties somewhere down the line. It's a conversation that is going to keep on occurring as we move deeper and deeper into the transitional phase. Number two, it is not by accident where we are where we are. There's a project of dismantling the guardrails of democratic governance, spiritedly and consciously and intentionally prosecuted by this government. Number one is shrinking empowered civic spaces. I'll just give the example of the Unity Fountain that Jonathan allowed as a sanctuary of those who oppose him to bring back the gears from where they took off, locally and globally, and ultimately he paid the price. But as a Democrat, he accepted the reality of empowered spaces. From NSAS in 2020 to end hunger bag governance in 2024, the repressive state apparatuses were unleashed by the Buhari regime and the current Bola Tinubu administration to repress in the civic spaces in order to ensure that that guardrail that protects our democratic infrastructure crumbles. The National Assembly that ought to become a bulwark of resistance of a sort, separation of powers in a democratic order, being the first tier of government, has suddenly disappeared from the space, including the tax issues. They've not even gone far as they should have gone. Number three, labor centers seem to have simply fled. They want terror financing. Charges were leveled against the president of NLC. That NLC is now shadow of itself. The media is hounded from space to space, giving the cyber laws and other excruciating restrictions on media freedom and civil rights. And finally, the political parties like Observe Party have seen the firestorm of massive intrusiveness, intervention, and the destabilization from outside. Finally, the criminal justice system has been weaponized. And that's what brings me to the conversation you guys had with the spokesman of the EFCC the other day, either a day or two. And I was amused by the lies that he was dishing out, that EFCC is above partisan,
because you've made several very weighty statements. You started by almost sort of giving credence to the ability of Nigerian politics or the Nigerian political space to self-correct, because you said, we've seen this before and things have a way of just balancing themselves out. But isn't that on its own an indictment on the failure of the institutions that are supposed to regulate the space? So what do? Do we just submit ourselves to the politics of strong men? Or is there any way for us to actually reset and start again and rebuild the institutions that are supposed to make this democratic process a level playing field?
The problem is that the foundation of this republic was occasioned by what I can call multiple layers of possibly, birth crisis or congenital abnormalities. That means we rush into a transition platform and framework that were not suited for the kind of society and environment we have. The parties then were three, including Alliance for Democracy and Default, as pointed out. We didn't want the military to stay any day longer. We wanted them out of the way. And it went out of the way. With the Constitution, we least understood. We didn't even see the sacred document given to us, not prepared by the people. And ultimately, we just wanted everything to just take on a clean slate. It didn't happen. Today, 26 years, we have sustained democratic culture at the level of form, not at the level of content, which is what you're talking about. Content is deepening institutions, strengthening those guardrails, and ensuring that our democracy is driven not by strongman politics, but by rule of law. It's a nation not of men or women, but a nation of laws. We haven't gotten there. The second debilitating condition is, of course, the lack of ideological clarity and philosophical foundation for the political parties, including the existing ones today. That's why you find the crossovers from one party to the other with reckless abandon, without any moral imperative or moral compass or moral contour. That means anywhere I can find safety, anywhere I can find some opportunity to advance my political agenda, I move in there. That's why parties will rise and fall until we begin to institutionalize and domesticate ideological prerogatives in formation and running of political parties. But as I was saying, part of the challenge too is the state itself, when it is weaponized against the opposition. And again, I was giving an example of the EFCC spokesperson. It's important that Nigerians should listen to this. He talked almost solemnly. EFCC is above board, above partisanship, and with the issue of the Bauchi State government and Bauchi State or Malami and other individuals. And the question is this: 2022 or thereabout, or before then, 2020, Ayo Salami panel on judicial panel on the EFCC. Where is the report? If it was not proclaimed by the last government, why hasn't this one proclaimed it? What has happened to Mago, the former chairman who was removed from office on certain charges, including the current chairman? Chapter 9 of that same report seems to have indicted him. Has he responded to that? And when you talk about, the immunity governors have, you can actually investigate governors, but discreetly, quietly, and solemnly, because you don't want to disrupt the governance of their state. When they talk about immunity, from prosecution, it's not because they're above the law. But they want that 4 years or 8 years time to pass, they will descend on them. But when you now insert the name of a governor like that of Bauchi State and say he's part of terror financing, if it's criminal law, that is defamatory. It is not investigation, it is persecution. You're actually trying to do what? Hamstrung him and his ability to run his state. And even put a cover, a cloud of uncertainty around his moral ability. So the point is that when you begin to deploy state institutions like the EFCC, the way and manner is being done, and I ask you to ask that spokesperson next time he comes around. And I'm not present with individuals I'm going to mention. Tanko Amakura has EFCC matter. Modali Sherif from Borno State has EFCC matter. Aziz Yari of Zamfara has EFCC matter. The current Senate President has well deposited problem with EFCC. These have been all completely forgotten, abandoned, because they are, as Oshomole will tell us, come over to us and then you are protected. But when you're outside that realm of protection, you're not only going to be prosecuted, you'll be persecuted, hounded, and intimidated, like is currently going on in Bauchi State with the governor and other top officials there. Broadly speaking, therefore, if you weaponize the criminal justice system the way they did, even with against the anti-hunger and anti-government, bad governance protest, small boys, less than 18 years. I can hear you.
Can you hear me? So I want you to expatiate. You said...
I can hear you very well.
You said Clause 9 or Chapter 9 indicted the current EFCC chairman in that report. Do you have that report? Because those are allegations you made. Can you expatiate the kind of indictment against the current EFCC chairman?
I said alleged.
So you don't have it?
I said alleged. Because if you read the full statement...
Okay.
But I said if you read... Listen to me. I said if you read the full statement made by Malami, currently detailed, in his statement, he mentioned specifically Chapter 9 that dealt with individuals within the top hierarchy of the EFCC. And a part of the problem he has is that the current chairman in that Chapter 9 was mentioned as part of the problem. I don't have it. It's a duty of journalists who have independent mind and the physical ability.
I mean, but we don't have facts to the reports. That's Malami mentioning it. Maybe except we get the full report.
Yes, it's allegation. It's allegation.
That's why we can talk about the weight of allegation. That's number one. Number two, another part I would like to talk. I think we'll be able to clear that, but we've not seen the report, because I would also like to see that report, because in fact, you see, that's why we should do things openly and transparently. I remember on this show about 3-4 years ago, Malami himself was our guest, and I did ask him that will that report be released to the public? He said he gives me assurance that the report will be released to the public, but we never saw it in the public. So maybe if we had seen that report, released, then maybe there will be clarity on this matter today. But I want to go back and talk to you about another phenomenon, which is the greed of our political actors in this conversation of a one-party state. Look at what happened with the PDP. Look at the allegations against Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, saying that there was a gentleman's agreement that power was supposed to gravitate towards the south. But Atiku Abubakar from the north felt, I should go it alone. I should be able to do it. He won the party nomination. You might say people went overboard, but that was a pretext for the crisis. That's number one. The greed for power, the fact that it must be me. That same greed is set to even tear the ADC apart, that a lot of people are touting as the hope. Obi has come in now. You heard the other day where Professor Patutomi said that if Obi doesn't get anything short of the presidential ticket at the party, that he will withdraw his support from Obi. Tili Momodu replied and said that should not be the case. Kwankwaso is also coming and saying anybody that wants to court me is anything but presidential or vice presidential ticket. If these people can't agree, then you have further splinters, which will work in favor of the ruling party.
Let's talk about the greed for power by these people.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
So now, yes, quickly, on the first issue you raised, very important. When you come to a very major studio like this, a responsible studio, you've been very guarded in your statement, and I was very guarded. And I quoted my source that the former Attorney General of the country, now detained, who actually instrumented the establishment of that Ayo Salami panel, said that Chapter 9 contains detailed instances of infractions, moral infractions, and institutional leadership infractions by leading members of the EFCC, including the secretary then of that body, who is now the chairman of the EFCC. You and I haven't seen the report fully. The essence is that from Buhari to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that report ought to have been deposited to the people of this country. EFCC, between the EFCC and the Justice Ministry, that report is lying somewhere. So we said what Jerry, whatever it is, ought to be more interested in getting that report published to know whether that Chapter 9, as alleged, has something to do with the chairman of the current EFCC, current chairman of EFCC. Number two, you're right. I thought the PDP would have learned a lesson from the Jonathan debacle 2015. Apparently, they didn't learn that lesson in 2023. Well, the party self-corrected. Led by Mwabara, the BOT chairman, Bala Mohammed, the chairman of the Governors Forum, then more robust Governors Forum than even now, and the leadership there under Demago, they say, we must move this ticket to the south. APC having produced a Southern candidate president 2023. So that for 2023 to 2031, we have this restraining of elite appetite for power to say across the geographies and democracies of this country, you balance this thing because every area has enough men and women with capacity, experience, and depth to run the country. That's why they corrected in 2023. Not that the rot in PDP was deep, but that the effort to dismantle the party was deeper than most people even realized. That's where we are. But as I said, and I maintain it, Nigeria is a robust, multinational, diverse, heterogeneous country with deep fracturing fault lines. One party state cannot survive here. By the time politicians and then we congregate towards the mid part of this year and reformulate the agenda across 2 or 3 parties, it may serve us the purposes of a contested election 2027. But you're right, all of you guys in the studio, it's not a solution to the crisis of democratic governance in the country. Institutions must be deepened, parties must acquire the cloak of viable and clearly well-directed philosophical and ideological depth. And civic spaces must become re-empowered once more. And the media, as robot as it is, must put its feet down. And labor, most crucially, that have become tame and lame of late, must rise up to the challenge. These are the guardrails we are talking about, we have to rebuild. Because we are now living in an age of competitive authoritarianism, where this government is a hybrid regime. We don't know whether it is illiberal, authoritarian, and so on.
Okay. Now, just by way of clarification, you made some far-reaching allegations against the EFCC as an institution. Now, I'd like to ask you, I mean, does the fact that a man has immunity under Section 308 prevent the EFCC from investigating such persons, whether it's his governor or the vice president or the president? That's number one. Number two, many of the cases you refer to, they are cases that are in court. Do you also agree that the EFCC has no control over the judicial process, over the courts? It can arraign people, but what the courts do, how quickly they do it, is for the judiciary. And then 3, will you, in the light of that, recommend that the EFCC, should have designated courts, like special courts, dealing specifically with corruption, just as you have National Industrial Court dealing with labor and employment issues. So if you have a dedicated arm of the judiciary dealing only with corruption cases, do you think that would, fast track some of the cases, since the EFCC does not control the courts and its pace and the pace of the judiciary?
Okay, number one, the direct answer is simple. Nobody is above the law, and no governor or president is above investigation. Prosecution can occur when you leave office, but investigation will occur when you're in office. But it will be discreet, measured, quiet, under the table kind of investigation, not because the governor is above the law, but because they do not want to distract the state. The moment the governor's name is dragged around, like Bala Mohammed be dragged all over the place, every issue of terror financing, his name is there. Well deposited for the world to see. And the implications are global in nature. If you recall, the judge asked the EFCC, bring these guys to me 3 times. Then quickly overnight, you manufactured terror financing charges and dragged the name of a sitting governor into it. The name of the governor has no business being there at this stage, but he can investigate the governor quietly and discreetly by the end of his tenure, and you have ample matter, prima facie matter, as they put it, enough evidence for you to prosecute, but then drag the governor around to the court and begin to prosecute. But to prosecute with the media and corrupt and criminally slur the name of the governor, his image and reputation is reprehensible. It is not done, but the governor can be investigated, period. Number 2, I did a little bit of research, but not compellingly comprehensive research to say, are there cases the EFCC have just abandoned? Not the court. When I mention Agbodu Ali Sharif, I don't know whether it is in court. Amakura, Tanko Makura, I don't know whether it is in court. Akbar Bios matter, I don't know whether it is in court. Azidi, I don't know whether it is in court. It may well be, correct me, fact check me. You have the better institutional equipment and resources to fact check me. I'm not talking about those already in court. And I agree, the EFCC cannot fast track the judicial process, but EFCC can slow it down. Sometimes the judges accuse EFCC of not diligent prosecution, of negligent prosecution. Some sort of deal somewhere said, handle this matter softly, let it linger for a long while, then just forget about it. Yes, why I mean that the court may be slow. Sometimes institutionally, the agency protected become even slow on the basis of political pressure. I agree with you completely, Dr. Bati. We should have special courts set out to handle issues of corruption, economic crimes, and treasonable issues in terms of crimes of economy against the economy of the country. If you have such dedicated courts, mandated and well-resourced with cutting-edge technology, ICT stuff, AI even aided, it is possible to begin now to get these matters resolved faster than the current slow, snail-like space. We are actually resolving them. I agree with you entirely on that.
Okay. On that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Udenta Udenta, for joining us on the morning show. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPPE. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Every business creates data. Sales, payments, movements. Sparkle turns activity into information you can understand. And insights you can act on. Sparkle doesn't just show you what happened. It helps you decide what to do next. Download the Sparkle Business app today.
In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodinma's leadership has turned manifestos into reality, transformations that feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace, and in Imo, it's not left to chance. From land to sky to river deep, Guardians are watching, protecting dreams and opportunity. At Orashi's quiet shore, hydropower is rising, set to energize a growing economy. The change is visible. New roads emerge, industry hums, communities come alive. At the center, a digital revolution. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build the future. As Orashi rises, so does Imo and the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
Be Unstoppable Africa at the 9th All African Music Awards, AFRIMA, in partnership with the African Union Commission and the Lagos State Government. The biggest music stage, the stars are celebrated in Goho with 23.9-carat gold-plated AFRIMA trophy to be hosted by Vals. Live broadcast of Red Carpet starts at 3:30 p.m. AFRIMA Awards live broadcast starts at 7 p.m. on Sunday, January 11, 2026 at the Eco Convention Center, Eco Hotel and Suites, Lagos, Nigeria. For tickets, invitations, seat reservations, visit afrima.org. 9th AFRIMA Awards. Be Unstoppable.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash trapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, Nigeria's economy demonstrated strong resilience in 2025, achieving a measure of macroeconomic stabilization that has positioned the country for improved growth prospects in 2026, according to a comprehensive review by the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, that's CPPE. The report identified exchange rate stability as the most notable achievement of the year, with the Naira trading consistently within the 1,440 to 1,500 Naira band against the United States dollar. The stability restored business and investor confidence, helping to ease the imported inflation pressures that had weighed heavily on the economy in previous years. Well, joining us on the show to discuss how we can achieve stability, growth in 2026 with sustained reforms is Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPPE. Good morning, sir. Happy New Year.
Good morning, Bimbai. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai.
Morning, sir. Happy New Year, sir.
Well, Dr. Yusuf, you were projecting GDP growth of 4.0 to 4.5% for Nigeria in the year 2026. Now, you are close enough to the Central Bank of Nigeria, which gave a figure, I think, 4.5 to about 4.9%. But the last time we discussed this subject, I focused on the downside risks that you talked about. Improved performance in the non-oil sector, the services sector remaining strong, security, which can affect agriculture, inflation moderating, but specifically you also talked about geopolitical risks. Now, since you made that observation towards the end of December, so much has happened. For example, in terms of geopolitical risks, look at what is happening in Venezuela. You talked about oil price volatility. Oil price volatility now looks like something that is real. As of this morning, the spot price of Brent crude has gone down, and it may get worse in the light of uncertainty in the crude oil sector. You talked about tax, how tax plays out in the year 2026. Now, we started this year with many people, controversializing the Tax Reforms Act. So in the light of all these early developments, have you had cause to think of where maybe you revise your projection, or you think that we're still in a good place?
Well, thank you, Dr. Abati. Economic issues are very dynamic. They are dynamic because the variables that shape economic outcomes are not static variables. They change. That is why even when we make projections, we anchor those projections on a number of variables. So in the light of what is happening, of course, we need to worry about the risks to the outlook. Yes, many of us have projected very positive outlook, but just as you said, oil price volatility is actually a risk. And that is why we'll advise the National Assembly when they are considering the budget. They need to revise or review some of those assumptions, particularly assumptions around oil price and oil output. Because as we speak, those assumptions are really on the optimistic side. And one of the challenges we have had with budget implementation has been the fact that most of those budget appropriations are based on assumptions that are not realistic. Because the more conservative you are about those assumptions, particularly revenue assumptions, the better, for planning, and the better for the realism of even the budget. So I'm hoping that this year, those assumptions will be taken care of and made a lot more realistic. Of course, we have these geopolitical issues around Venezuela and all of that. Those who have implications for oil price, just as you have said. Although given the fact that up until now, the oil price, Venezuela has not been performing so well in the oil market. The output has been low, investment has been low. They have been suffering all manner of sanctions and all of that. So what is happening may not materially affect the oil market, at least in the short term. Then, of course, you have all these security issues, which could also pose a threat. And we also have issues around our fiscal projections. And just as you said, you talk about tax. The tax issue, it be just somewhat controversial, but what is more important is how we're able to manage the implementation, to douse all the apprehensions, to douse the anxiety and all of that. Those things are critical because in matters like this, we need to be as pragmatic as possible. Yes, we already have the law. The law is the law. We have to comply with the law. Some of the controversies around gazetting and all of that, I think those ones are beginning to fizzle out. But the implementation has to be as pragmatic as it can be, so that all the anxiety around it will not create another major problem for the economy.
Okay, thank you for those points. Now, I want to ask about this phenomenon of jobless growth. Because we continue to look at the growth numbers, the GDP numbers, things are looking up, the indices are looking up. But in economics, as you well know, economic growth does not mean economic development. Last year, we saw that by the end of the year, there had been GDP growth significantly exceeding expectations, but it was jobless. So do you foresee this being another year of jobless growth? If so, how can that be corrected right now from the beginning of the year? Or is it something we should just accept?
Well, job creation is about investment. And investment is about the quality of the investment environment. And there are two major factors around the investment environment, key enablers. You have the macroeconomic factors, which we have all, which we have discussed briefly in terms of, the stability and the fact that the macroeconomic environment is stabilizing. That is one leg of it. The other leg of it are factors that impact on competitiveness and productivity and sustainability of investment. Macroeconomic conditions are good, but you have structural issues that can enable productivity. Because if you have a good macroeconomic environment and you are still grappling with productivity issues, it will be very difficult for those who are investing to be able to sustain their investment. It will be very difficult for new investors to come on board because it is through investment that you can create the jobs. So that is why, yes, macroeconomic stability is good, but it's not sufficient to deliver the kind of outcomes that you are referring to. We need to address productivity issues. We need to address competitiveness issues, which generally we regard to as structural issues. And these are issues that both the states and the local government, and the federal government have to prioritize going forward. Because I agree with you, what is the point in having growth that does not deliver jobs, that does not even deliver welfare? These things require specific policy intervention measures outside the macroeconomic conversations. To be talking about energy, talking about power, talking about regulation, talking about how supportive our institutions, state institutions, are they facilitating businesses or they are frustrating businesses? Some of them constitute obstacles to business. What is happening in the past? You have just talked about insecurity. No, all of these conversations are not macroeconomic conversations. There are structural conversations. There are critical business enablers that we need to be more deliberate, more intentional about if we really want the growth to translate into jobs. And it's not just jobs, it's also about welfare. Because that has been the conversation for the whole of 2025. We say, yes, the economy is recovering, but people keep complaining about the fact that they cannot feel the impact in terms of welfare. So there has to be deliberate, measures at the state level, at the federal level, even at the local government level, to ensure that we address those obstacles, to productivity in the economy.
Okay. Real quickly, sir. Then where will the growth come from? Also, another part that spurs growth, which is consumption, has been hit hard by inflation. In fact, there's a story on the headlines of the Punch today that was talking about because of discretionary spending due to inflation of goods and services, prices, the families are cutting back close to 14 trillion in spending. What sectors will the growth come from in this new year?
Well, the way things are now, if you look at the GDP numbers, the service sector is contributing close to 57% of the GDP. And quite a number of things are happening in the service sector. If you take, trading, for instance, a lot of jobs are taking place. If you take ICT, if you take e-commerce, if you take the entertainment industry, we're not quite right, but a lot is happening in the entertainment industry. And of course, you also have agriculture. These are sectors that you have construction as well. These are sectors that are, employ a lot of people. These are job elastic sectors. So what I think is important as part of the employment or job creation strategy is to identify those critical sectors that are job elastic so that when they grow, they deliver more jobs. If construction is growing, construction will deliver jobs. Imagine how much labor you will need, even if you are just putting up a bungalow. Imagine the different kind of skills and artisans that you have to engage. The same thing with agriculture. The same thing even with ICT. The same thing even with the distributive trade sector. The distributive trade sector is a very large sector. by virtue of the fact that we have a large population. So I think in terms of the sector that can deliver growth, it's about agriculture, it's about manufacturing, it's about construction, it's about trade. But just as I said, we need a combination of policy instruments, trade policy, fiscal policy, monetary policy, to be able to ensure that we support all these prospects in all these areas. Because if there is no prosperity for those who are investing, if there is no prospects for them to prosper, they will not put their capital there. And these are the people that will create the jobs, not the government. It is the private sector that will create the jobs. So it's a function of the environment, it's a function of a combination of policy instruments to support those initiatives of entrepreneurs in the economy.
Okay, Dr. Muda Yusuf, we've talked about policy, the environment, and prosperity, building prosperity. One of the issues we discussed on this table this morning has to be the fact that President Tinubu has now constituted a board for the NUPRC and the NMDPRA. Even if in the statement they were saying that the names of the secretaries, the company secretary, the legal advisors will be sent to the Senate. Well, I imagine that the Senate doesn't approve the appointment of legal advisors. That's done at the board level, at the company level. That's one omission, I think, that they will have to address. But I wanted to ask, what do you think of these new boards that have now come on stream? Better late than never, I said, the NMDPRA, the NUPRC board, and where is the role of regulation, the regulatory authorities within this whole arrangement? You can have policy, you can have prosperity, but the regulator is always very important. And we've had issues with regulation of the business side.
Well, the regulatory environment is a major factor in the investment environment because the regulators can sometimes be a major impediment to investment. We know what experience some of our investors have been facing. So getting the regulatory environment right is extremely, very, very important. It's a function of the quality of people that are on the board. It's a function of the quality of people that are in the management. And it's a question of the commitment of those in the regulatory space to actually promoting the economic growth and looking out for the larger good for the society. One challenge we have had with many public sector institutions is that many of them have become highly transactional. Transactional in terms of looking out for what exactly will benefit them. Some of these things may not even be happening at the level of the head of those institutions. But if you talk to the private sector players that interact with some of them, it can be a very, very frustrating experience. Especially when they interact with the bureaucracy in some of these regulatory institutions. So the transactional mindset in the public sector, particularly those of them that interface with investors, I think is something that we need to deal with if we really want to make this economy a much better economy. Because we have an economy that is blessed with a lot of entrepreneurs across all sectors, across all ages or age groups. But where you have cause to interact with some of these regulatory agencies, it can really be very frustrating. So as part of the reform, yes, we are talking about macroeconomic reform and all of that. We should also be talking about regulatory reform. We should be talking about public sector reform.
Correct.
So that you have a public sector that is also in alignment with what we want to achieve as an economy.
That's it. So, all right, on that very profound note, Dr. Muda Yusuf, we thank you so much for your time this morning. And we hope that all prophecies for economic growth and job creation for 2026 will be fulfilled. Thank you so much for your time. It's now time for a short break on The Morning Show. When we return, Aaron Akirijola will be here with a global sports update. Do stay with us.
In this life, it's what you do behind that shows in front.
Now we go. Give us the fire. Tell us more. It's Cosmo or nothing. Luxury or not, this is Cosmo.
That's why I roll with Cosmo deodorant. No sweat, no stains, no odor.
Now you know.
Cosmo Roll-On Whitening Deodorant.
All day freshness, 7 days a week from GVS Cosmetics.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash trapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
And it goes to you.
Be unstoppable, Africa, at the 9th All African Music Awards, AFRIMA, in partnership with the African Union Commission and the Lagos State Government. The biggest music stage on the continent of Africa, where the stars are celebrated and go home with 23.9-carat gold-plated AFRIMA trophy and dazzle with electrifying performances on Sunday, January 11, 2026, at the Eco Convention Center, Eco Hotel and Suites, Lagos, Nigeria, to be hosted by multi-award-winning Nigerian star and personality Vals, and Senegalese model and broadcaster Lillian Maru. Live broadcast of Red Carpet starts at 3:30 p.m. AFRIMA Awards live broadcast starts at 7 p.m. as doors will be shut at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, January 11, 2026, at the Eco Convention Center, Eco Hotel and Suites, Lagos, Nigeria. African music will be unleashed. Broadcast live on DSTV, GoTV, IPTV, TVC, Afro Music Pop, and over 84 countries across the world. For tickets, invitations, seat reservations, visit www.afrima.org. 9th AFRIMA Awards. Be unstoppable.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, for updates on sports stories from across the globe, Aaron Akerijola and Ebi Iyomon bring us this report from Morocco.
We're almost at the end of the round of 16 at the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations. And what a game yesterday between the Super Eagles of Nigeria and the Mambas of Mozambique in a whitewash and a mismatch. 4-0 was how we actually ended. All right, Abi, talk to me. How was the game yesterday? And what a game for the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Well, a very important match for Super Eagles of Nigeria. So many would have said that, well, they're the obvious favourites with their pedigree, with the goals they scored in the group stages and all of that. And they lived up to expectation, getting those goals, 4 goals scored in the round of 16. It means they've scored 12 goals in this African Cup of Nations tournament. And I think it was totally expected. I don't think there's anything so big about it. The only big thing about it is that Nigeria are in the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations, and they may just be facing either Algeria or DR Congo.
All right, that will be later on today, and we'll be expecting to find out who our opponents will be this evening. But in the meantime, while we should be celebrating what was a superlative victory against the Mambas of Mozambique, there was a little bit of a spoiler, an incident on field that dovetailed off the field actually rubbed the entire game the wrong way. And AB, a lot of people are divided on this, and it has to do with Victor Osimhen chastising Ademola Lookman for missing some glaring chances of failing to deliver to him what would have been an opportunity to get a hat trick, and also the incident that involved Wilfred Ndidi trying to calm him down and him shoving him off. Talk to me, how did you receive that particular incident?
Well, the heat of the moment, and I think the only thing that struck is the fact that it had to go on for a long period of time in the game, or at some point he was substituted from that particular game. Luckily for them, they were able to hold their own after that moment and not concede a goal, or the incident did not really affect them after he left.
All right, the incident did not affect them after he left. Of course, they went on to add one more goal because they were leading 3-0, talking about the Super Eagles. But now what we know was that Victor Osimhen stormed out of the stadium, and the president of the Nigeria Football Federation, talking about Ibrahim Gusso, probably going after him to pacify him, because confirmed reports have it that Victor Osimhen said he was done with the national team. He dropped his accreditation and said he was going back to Turkey. And some officials said no one should appease him and let him do what he has to do. We're waiting for more reports from the national team on this particular issue. But in the meantime, let's get to hear from the captain of the side, Wilfred Ndidi, and the coach, Eric Sekoshel. This is what they had to say about this particular incident.
As guys on the pitch, it's a competitive spirit. You know, we want more, and it wasn't coming, so we were a bit frustrated.
I just said something before. What happened in the group, stay in the group. Okay, this is a story about the group life. It will stay in the group life.
All right, coach, moving forward, how would you assess the team, and who would you prefer to take on? Congo DR or Algeria?
No, just we have to stay focused on our training session and our game project. We will watch the game and we will analyze this game, and we have a lot of work to do before this game. So
all right, first
we have to stay focused.
We've heard from both the coach and the captain of the national team speak on this issue. But AB, before we wrap it up, how does this affect the tournament going forward?
I do not think this incident is going to be of much impact to the national team, because I know for a fact that players usually have spats. We have, for instance, about 2-3 weeks ago, we had Idrissa Gueye hit his teammates in the Premier League and was given a red card for it. Players have spats, but it's how you come out from it, settle after. They may have talked about it already. We'll see what comes out after this. But I know that the team has many players.
He's our biggest player. He's our biggest star.
He is the team's biggest player. But one thing for sure is teammates quarrel on the pitch, but off the pitch doesn't mean that they have bad blood. I think that this is something they can easily move away from or move on from. So I don't think it's going to stop the team from playing better because they had a quarrel on the pitch. I don't think so.
All right, we don't think so. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But at the moment, we'll be waiting to hear from the Nigeria Football Federation and also from the Super Eagles release an official statement on this particular issue. And one thing is clear. This has marred what was a great victory for the Super Eagles. Without a doubt, the Super Eagles are into the quarterfinals of the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations. Maybe, would you think we'll be meeting Algeria or DR Congo?
Well, I think any team, any of the teams, because Nigeria has a point to make against Algeria and DR Congo. DR Congo stopped Nigeria from the World Cup. Algeria in 2019 defeated Nigeria in the semi-final. So any of the two teams would be a big matchup for Nigeria, just to prove a point and just keep progressing in this tournament, because I'm very sure that Nigerians are enjoying how the team is playing at the moment. All
right, great victory for the Super Eagles of Nigeria by a disturbing footnote that ended in uncertainty. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, Ebi Yomo and Aaron Akerejola out there at the ongoing African Cup of Nations. But it seemed to me from their report that what should be most concerning would be the behavior of Victor James Osimhen, the superstar who has been behaving well since his last issue with his Super Eagles coach. And then now, having scored 2 goals in one match, one of the goals came from Ademola Lookman providing assist, and then the second one from Akko Adams. Just because Lookman did not pass ball to you, and then he had that thief with him, tell him, no, try him again. No. I mean, I guess it's a question of maturity. But I like what the coach said, that, well, what happens in the group stays in the group. But I think the other members of the team, they should not be distracted by this. The team is supposed to work together as a team. And what we as Nigerians want is for that trophy to be brought home for the 4th time to the glory of Nigeria, not about the tantrums. And I think some of these are, players, they probably need help of, psychological advice. I think those teams have, teams usually have psychologists so that they can manage them. In fact, the moment I saw Osimhen without the captain's band, and the previous match he had the captain's band, I said, how is this guy going to take this now that the captain's band has gone to Ndidi? But all of that is just about learning to be mature and focus on team goals rather than individual praise or glory.
With due respect, they said Osimhen wants to go to Turkey. He should be going. What nonsense. What nonsense. What nonsense attitude. What Ademola Lookman has achieved, you two have achieved. You are both African Footballer of the Year. Why are you doing this? Put your hand down. Then the next thing, you drop your accreditation. At first, please, this is how we can bring in discipline. The only way Osimhen should be allowed back into that team is after he apologizes to his teammates. Yeah, things will go south.
When a child misbehaves, you don't throw him away.
And that's the more reason why. That's the more reason, Dr. Abati, why he should apologize to his teammates. And what he should apologize for is him throwing his accreditation and saying, I'm done, he wants to go to. He should go to Turkey. They should rent private jet for him to go. Are you God?
Who will pay for that?
Are you God? If he goes and they win the Nations Cup behind him, which I want them to win, that's when he will know that you're not indispensable. What is it? You are there today. People were there before you. Yeah, I know players have teeth. Rashidi Yekini had his own too back in the days and all of that with, ball service. Yes, it's for the moment. But once you iron that with your teammate, you are your teammate. You are not his God. You're not first among equals. Osimhen, Bono, Malo, Turkey. Grown team for nonsense. What rubbish.
Well, I think what's most concerning for me is that we're seeing sort of a culture of repetitive behavior, because I remember also seeing him lashing out in Uyo. That was at the match against Zimbabwe. And he also had some similar outbursts against his teammates. I remember because I was watching that against Zimbabwe. That's why I remember. But having said that, there are 2 issues here. Internally, within the team, what are the disciplinary actions that are taken? We know that passions happen, passions override and so forth, but what are the actual disciplinary actions that stop this from becoming a brand that is associated with a single player who seems to get away with doing it continuously and denigrating his teammates, and gets away with it because he's the star? So there's a concern around that. But the most important thing right now is to stay focused. We don't need all of these side shows and distractions. The team's morale doesn't need to be dampened in any way whatsoever. They are doing well. They're performing well. So I don't understand whose village people are coming to try and scatter this, this good streak that we're currently on. So let's just focus on that. Let the spirit of sportsmanship also dominate. This is why it's also important that when your kids are growing up, let them play different sports, expose them to different things, to learn the spirit of sportsmanship, that sometimes you'll lose, sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll be the star, sometimes you won't be the star.
We call it teamship.
Teamship.
That's the Nigerian.
Osimhen should apologize. Yeah, everybody lose their head. I want to accept, he lost his head, but apologize after. What nonsense. You're African Footballer of the Year. Ademola Lookman is African Footballer of the Year. What is it?
Okay. We'll see. There must be some mature people in that team who will work it out. It's time now for a short break. When we return, Anieze Osakwe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and check balance. You don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN. And when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
As far as your eyes can see, you can own it. Built on integrity, surrounded by nature, a place where you feel alive. With golf course, amusement park, artificial lake, sports centers, residential and commercial spaces. Be among the first to invest for greater returns and a new lifestyle. Utu exclusive. Live, play, relax. Invest today.
Buying your Airpeace ticket just got easier with Fidelity Bank. When you book on flyairpeace.com, choose Fidelity payment options and complete your payment effortlessly. With Fidelity Bank, you can pay with transfer, fast, secure, and powered by Fidelity. Buy now, pay later, enjoy flexible payments, and travel stress-free. Book on hold. Lock in your travel plans and pay when you're ready. Whichever you choose, every transaction is quick, seamless, and protected. No stress, no hassle. Just smooth payments every time. Because with Fidelity Bank, flying Airpeace isn't just about getting there, it's about getting there with ease. Fly Airpeace. Pay the Fidelity way. Simple, safe, convenient. Visit flyairpeace.com to get started.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now with stories trending around the world is Anyeze Osakwe. Good morning, Annie.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good to see you. Good to see you all. Bye-bye, Rufai.
Beyonce.
Oh, my. Yes. Thank you for the shout out.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
You have to wave the ring like so. You have to greet us like this every morning.
Yes. I'm left-handed now. Only left-handed now.
Somebody has taken her.
Yes.
Somebody's son has found you.
Yes, someone's son has found me. Correct. Thank you, Bye for that.
So we are going to Gidi?
I thought you guys would. Maybe. We'll see. Still planning. We'll see.
But so Gidi now.
We have to take it now that you've said it.
It's your village now.
Now that you've said it, it probably has to be there. Okay. Yes. So, with that being said, good morning to everyone out there. Thank you all for starting your day with us. We start what's trending today with the drama coming out of River State politics, with FCT Minister Nyesom Wike seeking to show and tell the public that even though he's the minister of the FCT, he still sees himself as a major power player in the state's politics and its future. Speaking during a thank you visit to the Oyigbo local government area, Wike openly called out APC's National Secretary, Ajibola Bashiru, essentially telling him and other politicians to back off from interfering in the state's politics, Or else. Let's take a look.
I say it here, Victor, I want to say it here. Take this message. Tell your National Secretary, leave River State alone. Leave River State alone. When Mr. President comes back, when I see the Minister of the Economy, I will tell them to tell him, go and ask other people what has happened to them before. Putting River State, carry your hand to come to River State. If your hand burns, don't say the people no more. I can challenge anybody. This state is a no-go area. This state is a no-go area. Whether you like it or
Now, responding to Wike's comments, Bashir said the minister simply does not have the authority to interfere in the affairs of the ruling party, asking him to resign from being FCT minister to face his obsession with River State politics. And I'll just take a few tweets before I come to you, Vimbai. Jide said, I think Wike is overshooting his influence and relevance within the current APC government. He's dispensable and can be buried politically if he doesn't behave himself. He's trying hard to stand by his word never to defect to the APC. He should defect. Heavens won't fall. And then Jimmy said in another tweet, respectfully, Ajibola should face his front. The battle is between two people from the same state. He should sit down and watch without taking sides. Whoever wins is still a win, and in addition to his party. Vimbai, I mean, the insults, the threats, the calls for resignation, is this essentially the future of River State politics? How should the public and the people of River State be seeing this?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, Annie, this has always been River State politics. It's always been a very dramatic place where, you know, unpredictable. You don't know what will happen, you know, between various administrations. So I think maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had about the political culture that has turned River State, you know, a home, into a home for these types of very strongman Machiavellian politics. But having said that, Nyesom Wike had sort of celebrated his success at being able to build a rainbow coalition of sorts in River State. I believe at the same event, he had the chairman of the APC and also had the chairman of the PDP for the state standing side by side. And this is what he projects as his success in the state. But the truth of the matter is that the platform he currently enjoys as a minister of FCT belongs to the APC. He is an opposition member, and even that is in contention because the PDP say that they have taken away his membership, and that's in court. So as it currently stands, Nyesom Wike, before the law, is neither a member of the APC nor is he a member of the PDP. So those who are asking what is the locus that he has to make these bold proclamations and claim to have the amount of power and influence he has are very right in doing so. However, in the morning, in the beginning of the show, some of the things that we had unpacked, or rather I had unpacked, were around the fact that, well, we're going to see a lot more of these tensions brewing in all the states where we've seen governors decamping from their parties to the APC because there are struggles for party structures all around. So Nyesom Wike goes the extra mile and is extremely explosive in the way he fights for what he calls his structure. But what's going to happen to all those other governors, all those other party stalwarts who also claim that they've built and invested in their own structures and will not accept a governor who has just decamped from somewhere to come and take those structures away from them? So I think the APC convention is going to be quite an intriguing one. The argument on the table is that, well, they will all be rewarded, everybody will fall in line. Well, we'll wait and see how that plays out.
Absolutely. I think, Dr. Abati.
Well, anyway, maybe you give Wike, you know, some credit for the capacity to keep causing trouble everywhere that he goes to. The best way to characterize River State politics is to remember the novel, the young adult novel by Professor Anezi Okoro, written in 1972. 1 week, 1 trouble. That is the title of that novel. And what they do in River State is 1 week, 1 trouble. And Wike is a protagonist in ensuring that the destiny of the politics of Rivers State and of the people is that of one week, one trouble, thus fueling uncertainty and instability. But I think that when I was talking about capacity, now people are fighting him in the People's Democratic Party, his original party. They have rejected him there. Now leaders in the APC are also rejecting him, saying that he should go back to his PDP because he's not a member of their party. And he too is fighting back. And he says he is challenging anybody to come to Rivers State because it is a no-go area. He's the one in charge. That anybody, does that include the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by the way? Because if he says anybody, it's a very expansive term of expression. Because one day, he may have to warn President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself. Maybe if things go south, he may even warn him not to come to Port Harcourt or anywhere in Rivers State because it's a no-go area and he is in charge.
Right.
Well, that's when he will be reminded that there is no part of this country that is a no-go area for the president, commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria. Because you never know, you know, people can just get carried away. And I think that Senator Bashiru and Yilda Nentawe, the chairman of the party, there may well be others like them within the party who are objecting to Nyesom Wike and his interventions on all fronts. And then again, another funny thing, two things I saw today. Some people are, circulating a list of 42 persons that at one point or the other are friends with Minister Wike, and now he's fighting them too. They have become enemies. You saw my name there?
Yes, it's an analyst.
Okay. Fame at last. I've suddenly become famous. For my name to appear on Wike's list. Another thing that they are circulating about him, which we will need to address, Post-it or any of his lapdogs can address that, is that his son is going to run for House of Reps, and they say the boy is being positioned. I have nothing against people encouraging their children, but, what the people are insinuating is that Wike even wants to build a dynasty. And then those people standing with him on those on that stage. I've not seen adults who are just, what is the technical word that I should use now? These are adults, so laughing sheepishly, clapping almost like robots. And then that band that is in the background, almost having an antiphonal responsorial relationship with them. I think we should investigate the kind of stimulants that members of that band that they consume, because the band
is doing well.
Okay, you like it?
Very creative.
Dr. Abati.
Okay, stand up and dance properly.
You've been warned about Wike matters, so you have been warned.
Who warned me?
Be fair and balanced with Wike.
No, we have been fair and balanced.
Yes.
We have been fair and balanced. Our job is that of an analyst, but this is the only band of his type that I have seen. So that's why I say there is a certain capacity for creativity.
Yes, absolutely.
However, I think that all of this constitutes a distraction, needless distraction. What is more important that we should be talking about is the insecurity in Borno, the insecurity in Niger.
Exactly.
That is what the presidency should focus on, not the antics of politicians. We should also be worried about this extra interest that the United States has taken in Nigeria.
And it's perfect that you said that, because those are the next two stories.
So these are the issues, not people dancing
absolutely.
Like robots.
Like Dr. Abati has said, from politics, let's now take a moment to look at the other major topic in the country today, which is insecurity, because today people in Nigeria are in mourning. They're mourning the loss of at least 9 soldiers' lives who were killed and many more injured in Borno State, according to security sources on Monday. They say that troops were ambushed when their convoy hit an unusually powerful landmine, followed by a gunfire near a place called Bindundul village. Now, that area is notorious for having a strong ISWAP presence, and a new video on social media shows the moments right after the explosion. Let's take a look. And every day, we discuss the brutality and the violence being waged as members of the military work to fight back against terrorism. But it's important to take a moment to recognize that beyond the numbers, these are regular men and women with families fighting every day, putting their lives on the line to keep the country safe. And we have some images where you can see how powerful the IED was to have destroyed their convoy and surrounding areas in such a significant way. This is what they're up against. And Rufai, I'll take the next one or two stories before coming to you, because over the weekend in Maiduguri, the Nigerian military revealed that they actually found the mastermind behind a recent wave of deadly attacks in the Northeast. His name is Sharif Umar, and here's what we know about him. He is the one who's responsible for recruiting, prepping, and deploying suicide bombers, for coordinating logistics, including that Christmas Eve suicide bomb at the Gamboru Market Mosque that killed 5 people. And with this, it's clear that the military is making some strides, but terrorists also seem to have an incredibly sophisticated network that are also fighting back. And finally, in a positive development yesterday, U.S. Representative Riley Moore spoke about how it's encouraging that the Nigerian government is working in collaboration with the United States to defeat terrorism. He even went on to say that the U.S. could provide more support like those strikes in Sokoto that we all saw on Christmas Day. Let's watch.
And the good news here is that the government of Nigeria is working with the United States. This strike that we had was in coordination and cooperation with the Nigerian government. So we are moving in a positive direction in all of this. I think there's going to be a strategic security framework that's going to be set up at some point here soon in between our two countries that is in the works, where we will be able to do some capability gap fillers for the Nigerians and their military, and then also provide the type of support like we did on Christmas with 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles, which, by the way, was the first time in 2 years you'd not had Christians massacred on Christmas. Instead, we had terrorists paying the price this Christmas.
So we've also seen reports from U.S. officials saying that the Sokoto state strikes were a one-time event, but there's still this lingering fear on the ground for residents in parts of the country that their community or their local government area could be next. So Rufai, I'll come to you on this, just the state of insecurity, finding a terrorist bomber, the loss of lives of all of these members of Nigerian troops, the U.S. now coming to comment. How should we be seeing all of this?
Okay, Anieze, concerning our troops, I would have wanted a case that if the Nigerian Army can please give us the picture and the names of these people that died so that we can paste their names and celebrate them like heroes that they are. Because they are heroes paying the supreme price with their lives for a country like Nigeria is something that should be celebrated. So I don't know, they might have contacted their family members. I know they might want to do their things in any way. But if you can get the pictures out there in the media and post it on the media and celebrate these people, because these are the true heroes of our country. But that should never happen there. But Anieze, when we're talking about the case of the insecurity, it rages on. It is so sad what is going on. The case that really hurt me the most is, even do you know that the attack that happened in Nigeria recently, some of the Papiri kids that were released, some of them were also re-kidnapped or re-abducted. So just imagine a child that is born in that area, goes to school there, 2 hit terrorism cases, kidnapped, released, re-kidnapped. And today, as we speak today, the government has not even said anything. I don't know, maybe they are going to call the terrorists and say, let's start negotiating their release. The National Security Advisor has not said anything about the people abducted in these attacks. The one that happened at the Niger market close to Papiri. We've not heard anything. Maybe they respond quicker when there are students involved, because, you know, that one there's a level of international empathy that goes to that one, just like how they reacted to the other one, the KB girls. So we don't even know the state of those people. So please, we'd like to beg the NSC. It's as if they have a way at which they call these terrorists and negotiate with them. We need these people back home, the Niger people. Also, we need the people that in the church that were kidnapped in Kogi back home. We also need Reverend Archie's wife. You also need her back home. And some other people, pockets of kidnapping. You know, there are too numerous to mention because today now, we've even run out of reporting threshold because we've reported too much. We don't even know how to keep up with them. That's number one. Number two, as regards America saying they're excited about the collaboration, yes, collaboration is good, but it's also an indictment on us as a nation. That it is America that is helping us conduct airstrikes. It's America that is saying, oh, we are working together. We are saying, oh, yes, let them come in. Let them come. Yes, we want an end to all of this. But there's also a downside to all of this. I would have wanted for our own military, our own logistics to be the one to be able to end this level of insecurity. I would not have wanted a case where we just have things happen and America is the one coming to bomb and all of that. So this is something we should think deeply because you see, every nation that helps you have their own interest. America's interest, yes, is the Christians that are being killed, the Christian genocide, but because there's also an equivalent Christian base in America. And that's why we should be very careful. And I would have loved to comment on the Wike issue. Real quickly. You see, in this life, let's be careful. You see, my father used to pray a prayer, Dr. Abati, and he would say, what it means is you will not be too full of yourself. And I used to ask him, why do you pray that prayer? He says, see, when somebody becomes too full of themselves, they overblow their importance. When damage comes to them, they will not know that the damage has started. And that's why when you look at this Wike matter, yes, it's important in the architecture of River States. But the question is, maybe he has done it a little bit too much. Because as we speak today, when he did it with Atiku Abubakar, he got away with it. Dr. Bati, if you remember, you remember that he prevented Atiku Abubakar, the PDP candidate, from campaigning for presidential election in River States. When all of that happened, he got away with it. He got his way in Rivers. But look at President Tinubu that he's doing it with now. President Tinubu, the master strategist in this case, has systematically played him out. I don't know how Wike will want to come out of this. The local government chairman, I think out of 23, 20 are in APC. The State of House of Assembly went to APC. The governor is APC. You are saying the structure, all President Tinubu needs to do now is all structures align and go to Fubara, and which the party is already saying. So he should be careful. I think this is time for him to now recalibrate. Maybe he will go against the might of the Jagaban. He will not dare do that because it's harder to fight a man that is in power and knows how to use power. Like a lot of people have said, Tinubu not be Jonathan, Dr. Abati, no offense. I'm sorry, with due respect. I beg. I beg for that word.
How did you drag mine?
I apologize for that word. But like they say, let me say it again. Tinubu not be Jonathan.
Okay. And from politics, let's now head to New York for the drama surrounding one New York City courtroom where just yesterday, the captured Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro was defiant in addressing the judge, saying that he was kidnapped before being brought to the United States. And responding to Judge Alvin Hellerstein, who asked Maduro to simply confirm his identity, who he was, Maduro responded in Spanish, saying in part, I am, sir, Nicolas Maduro. I am president of the Republic of Venezuela, and I am kidnapped here since January 3rd. I was captured at my home in Caracas, Venezuela. And, witnesses say that he was pretty calm and expressionless throughout the trial, even at the end when someone yelled at him that he would pay for his crimes, to which he shouted back, I am a president and prisoner of war. And Vimbai, we're watching this play out. I know you discussed it earlier on the show, and not to diminish it, but it almost feels like we're watching a movie, except this is real life, where a president was removed from his country and is now facing drugs and weapons charges.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a general global consensus that this isn't about drugs, nor is it about weapons. But to speak to the trial and to speak to some of the proceedings we saw yesterday and the conversations around it, yesterday a piece of information was also revealed that the BBC, there was a leaked email from the BBC to its journalists saying the word kidnapped or kidnap shouldn't be used with reference to this particular case. And now it's, snowballed into a bigger conversation about, well, is this a kidnap? Is it not a kidnapping? What do we call it? And I refer to that because, of course, he's using the term kidnapped himself. Having said that, there is the Westphalian sovereignty theory, which basically says that heads of states are off limits. And this is a concept that has endured for hundreds of years. And to see that being upended are several questions. And one of those major questions is, have we gotten into the era where might is now right? Because if you remember, all these multilateral institutions were created so that might wouldn't be right, so that the little man can have a chance against the big man, and the world wouldn't be dominated by the people who have nuclear warheads, who have military capacity, and so forth. So now we ask ourselves, okay, are we about to see a nuclear arms race? Are countries now going to run and equip themselves to prepare themselves for the fact that their leaders don't want to be at the mercy of somebody who feels that they're the policeman of the world? So there are those, and of course there are other issues that are also playing out within Venezuela, with the swearing in of the acting president, who's backed by Maduro's son, and Maduro's son saying, "Daddy, don't worry, your country is in good hands." But all of these unfortunately culminate and spill over into what we're seeing here in Nigeria with American involvement. And now people are asking, okay, how far will this involvement go? Where will America know its limits? Because currently we're cooperating. What happens if we wake up and we say, oh, no, Americans, we don't like this particular strategy? Do we have the sovereignty, the room to be able to say, oh no, America, this is where we draw the line with regards to insecurity in Nigeria? Or have we now gotten ourselves into this relationship that feels a lot like what's happening in River State, where somebody's going to come and claim Godfather over us and, drag our affairs according to their tastes and their likings, and then handpick a president and run our country for us until they feel that, oh, this is the suitable person for this country. So I think, with regards to it spilling over geopolitically and different countries reacting, I know ADC have put out a reaction saying that, the president is scared that this will happen to him. And so I think that in this moment, we shouldn't politic with such, sensitive in national matters. Nobody wants this violation of sovereignty to happen to any country. It should end with this Nicolas Maduro case. I hope he gets a fair trial, but it doesn't seem like he will.
Such good points. And now let's head back to Nigeria, where in Yobe State, officials are urgently calling for more safety measures for water transport after 29 people died in a boat accident on Saturday. The number, up from the original count of 25, was announced by the executive secretary of the state's emergency management system, Dr. Mohammed Goje, just yesterday. One video circulating on social media shows the community's anguish as bodies are literally pulled from the water. May all of their souls rest in peace. Now, this boat was carrying over 50 people, and initial reports say that overloading and structural defect were some of the major causes of the accident. And, people online were pointing out the fact that life jackets were nowhere to be seen in that video. And water transport actually feels like it could be an opportunity for different parts of the country, but it really hasn't been harnessed, Dr. Abati.
Well, this happens all the time. Now it's in Unguru local government area in Yobe State. Some other time it was in the Delta State. Again and again, people do not pay attention to safety requirements. If you are going to go on water, you don't say, I can swim. You wear life jackets. That's a basic safety precaution. In addition to this, you were even saying that the boat in which these persons were traveling was in a poor state. You were also saying that the boat was overloaded, 50 persons. So, in spite of everything that happens here in Nigeria, part of the problem is that our people, some of our people, don't let me say all of us, they tend to be suicidal. In those days, at The Guardian, we used to write editorials every Harmattan season. I don't think we have Harmattan season anymore. It suddenly has disappeared now that it rains in January. We will write editorial. We want people people living particularly in the Jos Plateau area that dress warmly. Every year, nobody will listen. Every year, people will die as a result of the harshness of the weather. So I think we just need to do a lot more in terms of public enlightenment for people to value their own lives. I was at an event, Mr. Fola Adeola was saying, we are quick to say Nigeria happened to X or Y. But sometimes it is Nigerians that happen to themselves. Nigerians themselves are part of the problem. And so it's not always about government. So I just will commiserate with the people affected and their families, and then just repeat again that safety is important. It is as important with boat travel as it is with aviation. I close by referring to this controversy over kidnap or not kidnap, which, Maduro himself said he was kidnapped. Maybe those who oppose the use of the word kidnap will be comfortable with extraordinary rendition. Extraordinary rendition. Does that sound better? Isn't that a better phrase?
I know where you are going.
Okay.
All this one, we can't do our standards by BBC. BBC is sulking up to Trump 2.0 now because of a court case ahead of it. And why all of this is also happening, why that email leaked is because there are a lot of heavy right-wingers on the board of the BBC now that are leaking everything now. So BBC, as we speak today, is in crisis. So we can't use their standards to be judging other media standards.
There is ordinary rendition. Doesn't sound neat.
But where you are going to, the place you
where am I going? I'm sitting down here.
The place you went to hang that ball, it's not good.
Very blurry, yes. Let's move on. Let's now move on to Anambra State, where we have a new video trending online that shows a driver at a checkpoint said to be in Awka South local government area. Now, in this video, the driver explains that even after having all of his car documents in order, police officers demand that he presents a tinted glass permit. Keep in mind, the Nigeria Police Force put this tinted glass permit case on hold after a court order stopped the move, but the officers still demand that the driver pays 50,000 naira on the spot. Let's watch.
Ha gwuru okwu tinted permit. And to get the tinted permit, they do it in this thing. Okay, no problem. It's they tell me 50,000. How is 50,000? Who tell you? You tell me 50,000, sir. Yes, you tell me 50,000. Man, sir, I didn't dare go. You tell me 50,000, but tomorrow I not get the money. You tell me 50,000, sir. Yes, now. I'll back your way home. I will not leave you. I just yes. I just call it. Tell the whole world. Let me hold you. Look at this man. I'm not afraid of you or whoever that you are calling of. I'm not afraid.
Now, in a post on X, the Anambra State Police responded to this video with the public relations officer Tochukwu Ikenga saying, "I have carefully studied this video and I didn't see anywhere the officer demanded any money from you. But from a close observation, it shows that you're on a call while recording the officers before the exclamation that he is demanding 50,000. In a second post, the police also said, "Let us reiterate that our personnel, especially those on stop and search, are briefed on issues of tinted permits and cannot do otherwise. As of this video you shared, it is contrary to your claim." So that's the response from the Anambra State Police. I mean, Rufai, we've talked about this tinted glass permit story for a while now. We know it's on pause, but in that video, we saw what we saw.
No, so what does the Anambra State Police command spokesperson think we are fools in this country? So the man would just be saying tinted permit 50,000 if they didn't ask it from him. So he will just orchestrate the scene and they will be going back and forth about 50,000. But if he thinks he's smart and we are fools, let's engage in this foolishness. Do you know that a court in Warri had first ruled that the tinted permit thing should be stopped? The police stopped it. Afterwards, they brought it back, trying to lie and ignore the fact that the court had talked about it before. When they brought it back, then the Nigerian Bar Association wrote about it. When they wrote about it, then another person took the case again to court. When the court now ruled again the second time, they now stopped it. So the Nigerian police are trying to play smart with us in the first place. It took another person going to court again, an MBA writing, before them to accept it. And because I followed the trajectory of the story. Anyway, the truth is, institutions of government must learn to respect authority. I mean, learn to respect the authority of the courts. But you see, what we have in this country is not a respect for the three arms of government. See, the kind of democracy we run, if Montesquieu was alive, Montesquieu will cry blood. Because the separation of powers Montesquieu talked about,
1774.
Nigeria is the total deviation of the ideology of Montesquieu. You will see in this same country where courts will talk about contempt for people heading the police or the EFCC or thereabout. They will not even listen to the courts. So we live in a very funny land, and that's why the rule of law is created in this country. And if we don't do this, we can't build a strong country. So the man that thinks we are all fools, I've also given an empirical analysis. You can reply to this, that the first time they went to court and the police rested on the tinted ban, didn't after some months they come back to say that court order does not hold them and they want to start again until another person went to court the second time.
Right. Such an interesting story. We've been following the tinted glass one for a while and we will continue to do so. But quickly, before we take our milestone, let's head from Anambra to Enugu State, where a new video has caught the public's attention as it shows the state governor, Peter Mba, arriving at work on Monday, yesterday, for his first day back in 2026 at the Government House. It was a grand welcome for the governor as he received a full red carpet treatment along with a welcome parade reception from the Enugu State Police. Let's take a look.
Yes, Excellency, may I have permission to maintain the gas into the gun.
What a reception. I mean, this video has captivated so many people online. On Monday, the governor also attended the New Year Workers' Mass that we saw in the last part of that clip at the Government House Chapel, where he called on civil servants to support his efforts to achieve the state's goals for internally generated revenue. Now, under milestones, where today, January 6, we are celebrating the 80th birthday of the former chairman of Zenith Bank and one of Nigeria's most renowned marketing and communications giants, Sir Steve Bamidele Omojafo. Now, Sir Omojafo was born in Lagos, but originally comes from Delta State. He graduated with a BA in Mass Communications from the University of Lagos and began his career in journalism, first working at the newsroom at the Daily Times. And for 3 years, he rose up the ranks, eventually becoming the publication's chief sub-editor. It was after that that he entered the world of advertising, joining the Lintas Advertising Agency, where he was sent to the UK for a training program. That inspired him to set up his own agency in Nigeria, which led to the creation of Rosabelle Advertising Limited and later STB McCann. His decades-long experience in the industry has been marked by innovative campaigns with brands like Coca-Cola and Nestle, as well as social marketing campaigns that have had lasting impact. What a career marked by so many accolades, including the National Award of the Officer of the Order of the Niger. He's also celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary with his wife, wishing Sir Steve Omojafo a very, very happy birthday.
Happy birthday
to him. And thank you all for your great analysis today. It's always a pleasure.
And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Rochus Odiri is up next with Global Business Report, and he will be speaking to Basil Abia, co-founder of Truva Intelligence, and Dr. Raymond Asemakaha, Group Managing Director, Benway Investment and Property Company. Stay with us. This is the Arise News Channel, your global standout news channel.
In most parts of the world, girl child are not recognized in the family. I hope all this problem holding down a girl child did not hold me down.